I recently lost my hardcore world, and as much as it hurts to say goodbye to hundreds of hours of work, I have to move on. So today I'm loading up a new hardcore series with the goal of creating some of the most immersive builds I've ever made in Minecraft. But in order to do that, I have to speed through the first few days of this world. Now, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy the early game of Minecraft, but the majority of hardcore deaths from what I've seen happen before most players even get iron armor. So ripping through the early game gives us the best chances of surviving long term. And the first thing I need is a bed because I have no shame in skipping through the nights, so I hope these sheep have been praying because they're about to meet God. Now we're just gonna collect some cobblestone. Gonna make a furnace real quick, throw that on the ground, get some of that mutton cooking. We're also gonna make a stone pickaxe, and we're going to make a stone axe as well. While the rest of that mutton's going, we can just scoop up some of this coal here. And if I remember correctly, there should be some iron around here. Yep, there it is. We'll make another furnace and get that iron going. Now we just sit here and wait until everything's done cooking, and we can continue forward. Just grab some of these pigs on our way too. Sorry guys, it's not personal, I just like the way your butt tastes. And there's some sugarcane here. Ooh. Let's take some of these pumpkins as well. This world is giving us everything. My god. This is a really good start. You could almost say this is a perfect start. Huh? Yeah? Alright, we're rocking. Now, I am playing with mods again this time around, but these mods don't add anything to the game. They're all either audio or visual mods to just help the vanilla experience along. Now, the only mod I have installed that changes any essential aspect of the actual Minecraft world itself is Tectonic. And Tectonic basically gives you these huge sweeping valleys and towering mountains. It basically just takes the regular Minecraft terrain and dials it to 11. There are no new blocks or no new biomes, it's just the already basic stuff improved upon. But one of the things that I think Tectonic does the best is the way it transforms the mountain biomes. I mean, this is basically the holy grail of iron and coal. I mean, it's just everywhere. So we're gonna spend some time up here in the mountains collecting iron and coal to hopefully get everything we need to get a good start in this world. That done, we're gonna go ahead and craft up some iron armor and a new iron axe. And you know, I kind of want to get a dog today, so we're gonna go hunting for some skeletons to get some bones. I'm also gonna craft up a brush real quick, that way we can get scoots, because you know, if we're gonna be armored up, it only makes sense that we get our dog armored up as well. You know, this isn't going to be a regular dog, this is going to be a hardcore dog. He's grinding the early game too, he just doesn't know it yet. Now I saw some earlier, where are they? Oh, there's a dog. Nope. Not what I'm looking for. Oh wait, here we go. Look at him, right here waiting for us. Come, wait, come back. Take the bone. 2 bones, 3 bones, 4. We got a dog. I like him. Now we're gonna throw some armor on him. I think we should name him Delgado. You know, like Beverly Hills Chihuahua, because he's brown and kind of looks like a German Shepherd. Hello, Delgado. But anyways, I think I want to start settling right here on this island. And this time around, I want to actually make sure I stay relatively organized. So we're going to whip up some chests here to make sure we can sort all of our items into proper inventory places. So now that we got all of the basic stuff set up, I think it's time we go down into a cave and try to find some diamonds. And yes, I know, some of you are going to be mad at me for getting diamond armor today, but I don't care. As I said before, I actually want to live in this world, so we're doing it anyways. Okay, so I spent a good amount of time mining, and I actually got 43 diamonds. And honestly, for mining for about an hour and 40 minutes without a fortune pickaxe, that's not terrible. That's actually, I think that's good. I don't know what a good diamond rate is, but I feel like that's good. I also got a lot of deep slate, which we're going to need for the build. But for now, we're going to make some diamond armor, starting with the chest plate, onto the leggings, some boots, and a helmet as well. There we go. Now I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. But for now, we're actually going to throw the diamond armor back into storage. I'm also going to craft up a diamond pickaxe, a diamond axe, and a diamond shovel. Now we're pretty much kitted out with all of our basic tools. Now I need to head back down into the caves to get some obsidian because we need to head straight to the nether to collect quartz, to get levels, to enchant the things that we just earned, bought, crafted. Yeah, and I'm actually taking a big risk here by putting my diamond armor back into the chest. I don't want it to get damaged before we enchant it, because if we end up having to combine it with other pieces of armor, it's going to cost more experience levels, and I can't afford that right now. But now that we got the obsidian collected, I'm going to head off the main island here, and there's a second smaller island out in the ocean a little bit, and I think that's where I want to build the nether portal. And I actually think this second smaller island is where we're going to be building our starter base. Because again, this is a big starter base, but it's nowhere near as big as my sunset castle, so it would make sense to put it on the smaller island. Plus, I may or may not have already designed a mega base for the island we're living on now, so that also perchance has something to do with it. But yeah, into the nether we go. Again, this is a really big risk, not going in with diamond armor, but if we manage to make it out safely, the rewards are going to be great. Managed to get 34 levels, which isn't as many as I would have wanted to get, but I think it will do for now. Now I did whip up an enchantment table, but I don't currently have any books to create bookshelves, so we're gonna have to go on a bit of a journey to hopefully find some villages to get us some bookshelves so we can get level 30 enchants. Dude, I think this is one of the coolest villages I've ever seen. They've got like the perfect little village at the base of this epic mountain here. It's just so cool looking. All right, returning home, I just gotta chop down a few trees here to get some planks, and then we can start making those bookshelves I was talking about. There we go, enchantment station set up. Just got a few pillagers here that I need to take care of. Now we can start enchanting. Efficiency 4, Unbreaking 3 on the first pickaxe. That's not bad. I can't ask for anything better, honestly. I was hoping for a god pick, but we can't get so lucky. Go ahead and make up another diamond pickaxe. We'll try again here. Efficiency 4, just efficiency 4. Okay, that's yikes. Go ahead and whip up an anvil. We'll throw these two picks together to at least get us efficiency 5, Unbreaking 3. Now, in order to keep enchanting, I really don't want to risk my life and go back into the nether right now, so we're going to head back up to the mountains and we're going to collect as much coal and iron as possible. That way we'll get XP from mining the coal and we'll get experience from smelting the iron ore. Now we just gotta sit and wait until everything cooks up. And with all of that said and done, we got ourselves back up to level 33. Go for a Silk Touch Efficiency 4 pickaxe. That's alright, I'll take that. And we're going to go for a Silk Touch Efficiency 4 shovel. It's pretty good. I'm also going to come in here and just do some low-level enchants for the rest of our armor, hopefully. I know this isn't going to be the best diamond armor ever, but at least we'll be a little bit more protected than normal. Alright, and with that, we've got protection 2 on everything except our boots, but that'll set us up pretty well for the future. We're also going to combine our pickaxes here, and that's the start of a pretty good god pick. Now we just need mending on it. But with that out of the way, it's time to start collecting the resources we're going to need for the starter base. Now, I think I want to build kind of like a wizard tower. I think that would be a pretty cool starter base. It would keep us off the ground and keep us safe and everything. Plus, I think it would just look cool. And I also want to do some terraforming around it as well to have some custom rocks kind of jutting out of the ocean and have it look like the tower was built on the rocks. And I want this thing to look like it was made out of marble. So the first thing we need to collect is calcite. Now, another great thing about Tectonic is with these absolutely massive mountains, you get these giant veins of calcite that spawn up high. So we won't have to worry about finding a bunch of calcite through amethyst geodes, because that would take forever. We'll be able to just take the calcite right off of this mountaintop. Alright, so I've been collecting the calcite for a little bit, but our pickaxe is already starting to break. So I'm gonna head back out to one of the villages that I found earlier, and I'm going to attempt to get a mending book. There we go. Okay, this guy wants to be a librarian. The only problem is that now he's trying to run away. Hello, sir. Please don't move. Stay here in this box. Nope. Get back here, please. This might take a while. There we go. We finally got him captured. Now begins everybody's favorite process in Minecraft, which is placing down and picking up and placing down and picking up and placing down and picking up and placing down and picking up lecterns until we finally get mending. Oh my god, okay. We finally got it. 24 emeralds is a little steep, but we'll work with it. Now we're going to collect some wood, and we're going to trade some sticks with Fletchers to get all of the emeralds we'll need. I think that's one of the best trades you can do in the game as far as getting emeralds is concerned. So I'm going to spend some time over in the jungle here getting all of the sticks we need. Alright, there we go. I think 4 mending books would be a good start for us. We're not going to put any on the armor yet. The armor isn't even that good. We have to get better base enchants first, but this will definitely take care of our tools. I'm also going to take some time to go back into the nether now that we have diamond armor, and I'm gonna get our levels back up to over 30. I'm gonna quickly enchant a new pickaxe, get fortune 3, efficiency 4, not bad at all. Now we have a fortune and a silk touch pickaxe. You can go ahead and throw a mending on that one. So now our axe, both of our pickaxes, and our shovel all have mending on them. And while I was at the jungle, I managed to pick up some bamboo, so I'm going to keep harvesting and growing this because we're actually going to need bamboo trapdoors and bamboo fences for this starter base. And we're going to use our brand new pickaxes to collect some cobblestone and some stone underground because we are going to be needing a bunch of this as well. And I'm also going to need a ton of diorite, so we're going to go exploring and see if we can find as much of that as possible. You know what kills me? There are a lot of uses for diorite, but it's still one of the most hated blocks in the community. A lot of people think it's the worst block in the game. There's a bee nest out here, cut down a couple of trees, and I stumbled upon it. So we're going to place some campfires down around it as well, and we're going to use some of the honeycombs that I got to craft some more beehives, and we're going to start a mini honey farm here. And I'm not going to tell you guys why yet, but we do need about 50-ish blocks of honey for the starter base, so we're going to let that thing go, and we're going to be collecting honey from it as we go along in the series and do other things. Now, one of the other blocks that we need is moss blocks, and I haven't come across a lush cave, which is kind of unusual. They're not that rare, and I've explored a lot of this world, so the fact that I haven't found one is kind of annoying. But I noticed on our map that out on this peninsula here, there seems to be some wood sticking out of the sand. So this is definitely a crashed ship, and we're gonna go look inside of it and see if we can't find some moss. Okay, this entire thing is encased in sand and stone. This is going to be a little bit more difficult than I originally thought, but if we keep going here, we should be able to find the chest still intact. The terrain generation shouldn't have broken them. So, yep, there we go. There's the first one, and there's 3 pieces of moss in there. That's perfect. I'll also take the extra bamboo, some potatoes and carrots as well. Okay, that worked out perfectly. Let's also see if we can get into second chest here. Okay, we got a buried treasure map as well, which is pretty cool. So I'm not going to go looking for that right now because we don't need anything that a buried treasure could possibly have. There's no reason why we would need a Heart of the Sea. So we're just going to go home. And I'm going to take this moss here that we found, and I'm going to start bone mealing it with the little bit of bone meal that we have to try and get all the moss blocks we need. We're probably not going to have nearly enough because I'm just now remembering, not only do I need a couple stacks of moss, but I also need a couple stacks of mossy cobblestone. So we're probably going to have to go back to the nether in a little bit to get some bone blocks, but for now we're going to work with this. And just like I predicted, we ran out of bone meal, so we're back in the nether. I'm trying to carefully navigate this Soul Sand Valley. I know there's a bunch of bone structures around the area here, so after collecting these, we should be good to go in the moss department. Alright, yeah, we got a bunch of bones, and I love how these things sound with the sounds mod in your inventory. It's so cool. But now we've pretty much got all the supplies we need, and it's time to start terraforming the area in which we're going to build the starter base. And the first thing I need to do is basically knock this island down to 1 level of sand blocks. We're eventually going to get rid of it, but this bottom layer we're going to use as a little bit of a base for the initial structures. Now with that gone and out of the way and all of our blocks collected, we can finally begin building the starter base. I'm very excited for this. And we're actually going to start with building the rock formations that are going to be surrounding the actual building. Alright, so all the rock structures are done, but we cannot continue with the build because I have run into a problem. I have forgot one incredibly essential block. We need like 10 stacks of wool. I mean, dude, sheep really just cannot catch a break this episode. But I'm gonna dig a little hole in the ground here. We're gonna line it with some fences, and we're going to use the wool we got from our day 1 sheep to line the edges. This way we can get in and out, but the sheep cannot. Now, the problem is just the fact that we need to find a couple of these little buggers. Sheep number 1, Bahaha. Don't talk back to me, dude. I don't know who you're mouthing off to, considering where... You don't even know where you're going, you little fatty. Look, you see this cow here? That's you if you don't shut the f*** up. You're about to spend the rest of your life in a cage. Anyway, I'm looking around in FreeCam here at the rest of the island, and there doesn't seem to be any more sheep, so... We gotta go on a little bit of an adventure here. Dude, how is there no sheep? Did I really kill them all? They should have respawned by this point. They know who they're dealing with. See, these sheep here actually have respect. They know who's playing on this hardcore world, and... Oh, never mind, wait, I found some. Hello, my friend. You and I have a very long journey ahead of us. Now we can start breeding up these sheep, and with the power of editing, we've got a ton of sheep. Look at that. It's like magic. I also improved the bee farm. It's much bigger now. Well, not much bigger, but... we have all the honey blocks we need. Hello, my friends. You live in a shoebox. It's a nice home. I got a bed. Well, the bed is actually for me, so never mind. But anyways, it's time to get back to work, and we're gonna get started on building the buildings. Building the buildings in Minecraft, the building game. Building the buildings in the building game. I don't know, man. Let's just get started. Now I gotta say, this thing, yeah, this is doing it for me. I'm liking the way this is turning out a lot. I will admit, the block palette is a little bland. I could have done more with colors, considering the fact that most of this is diorite and calcite. But again, this is a starter base, you know, like, I'm supposed to be using starter type blocks. We're good. It's good. We're moving forward. Now, there are some other structures that I want to build that are going to be attached to this thing, but I first want to close off some of the gaps we have in the build itself, and for that, we're going to need some spruce wood. So we're heading back up to the mountains here to get some of said spruce wood. God, please don't fall in the snow, please. Please, no. Okay. We're chilling. And we've got over 2 stacks of spruce wood at this point, so I think we're okay to head back. We're going to need to create a bunch of spruce trap doors. We're also going to need some stairs, and we are also going to need some stripped spruce wood, so we're going to go ahead and convert that real quick. And so let's come up to one of the side entrances here and try to figure out what this would look like if we put, I guess, some fake doors down. You know, not regular Minecraft doors, but doors that we actually build. Oh yeah. I like that a lot, actually. And so let's just do this in a few other places around the tower. But one of the things I also wanted to do, and the reason why we needed the honey blocks, was to make windows. Now, I know that doesn't make any sense, but we're putting glowstone beneath the honey, so what I'm hoping is that at nighttime, when we look through the windows of the build, it will have this kind of warm glow to it. I think it's going to look cool. You're just going to have to trust me with this, but yeah, it's gonna look good. All right, so all the doors are in place and the windows are in, and we're gonna turn on shaders for this part, and yep, look at that. That's exactly what I wanted. Maybe we could put some fences in front of the smaller windows to make it look like they're closed kind of or something, but I just wanted this warm glow coming through the windows to make it look like lights on the interior are on. Now, I know you can do that with regular blocks and stuff too, but I like the addition of the honey blocks. And the fact that they kind of look more connected than regular glass, or not that they look more connected, but they look, again, I keep going back to the word warmer, but that's the word to use. They look warmer than just orange glass. It's the right temperature of color, if that makes sense. I like it. We're going to keep going. Now, again, looking at the map here, this whole big island that we've settled on, I want that to be where the mega base is going to be. And so in order for it to make sense to have this wizard tower in this location, we need to have a bridge, or at least half of a bridge. So that's what we're going to build next, because I would like to have this wizard tower connecting to what is eventually going to be another mega castle. That looks insanely cool. I'm so happy with this bridge, and I know there are no railings on it, and I know it's broken. There are reasons for both of those things. This is going to be a lore-heavy world, not nearly as heavy as my old hardcore series. There's not going to be cinematics and animations and things like that, but there is going to be story, I guess I should say, in this world. And there is a reason why the bridge does not have any railings, and I will get to that in another video, but I think it looks really cool. Now we're on to what is probably going to be a very annoying part of this build, which is getting rid of this last layer of sand and sandstone. I want there to be water everywhere because I actually want the entrance of this base to be down below, underneath of a waterfall, but we're not actually going to be able to get to that this episode. However, we can start setting up for that. There we go. I think that looks a lot better, actually. I kind of like the look of the sand on the last layer, but I think we're going to change that eventually too. And taking a look at this thing from the island, yeah, the shape of that is really cool. Now we just got to take a water bucket and fill in some of the empty spots on the ground here to make sure water is flowing everywhere. And there we go, that is the build complete for today. I know it's not technically complete and it doesn't have an interior, but at least this one is connected to the ground. I mean, come on guys, give me a break here, I'm doing my best. And we are going to be building the interior of this thing as we go each episode, so don't worry, this is going to be 100% complete. And as much as I'd like to complete the interior today, my progress is kind of being bottlenecked by our tools and the amount of XP we have. So today we are going to be building an XP farm to help us get the levels we need to continue this series. And the first block we have to collect is smooth stone, which means we need to get regular stone, which means we need to get cobblestone. And that kind of sucks because we can't just use our silk touch pick because it's almost broken. But we are going to do some strip mining in the mountains. This way we get all the cobblestone we need and we'll get some extra iron and coal along the way. So now let's take some of that cobblestone and make some additional furnaces, throw those down, get some coal ready, and start smelting that cobblestone into regular stone. Now we just gotta wait a while for everything to cook up, and then we throw the stone back in the furnace again to get the smooth stone. And then it's basically just rinse and repeat. I have to do that process like 5 more times now. But while we wait, let's give these sheep a haircut. They're looking extra chonky today, and we're gonna take that wool and turn it into carpets because we are going to be needing like 10 stacks of carpets for the farm. And that's because we're making a creeper farm, and the carpet will help stop spiders from spawning. Let's also keep collecting this honey as we go, just in case we decide to do something with it later. Now, while the next few rounds of stone are smelting, we are going to start mining a bunch of these trees, and we're doing that for a number of reasons. The 2 most important of which are needing space for the mega base that is eventually going to go here, and we are going to need over 1,000 oak trapdoors to make sure this farm runs properly. And trapdoors aren't exactly cheap as far as wood goes, so we really have our work cut out for us. Man, complimentary reimagined shaders just can't be beat, dude. But anyway, I'm making my first ever chest boat. I never realized how helpful these things are because I've never built a base like this around water before, but we knocked down a ton of trees and got the trapdoors we need, so we are going to begin transferring items over to the location we are going to be building in. And I think we want to kind of have it far out in the ocean, but not too far away from the starter base. I think around here should be good. Now, the only problem is I have to swim down to the bottom of the ocean and attempt to pillar up without drowning myself. God, please no. Ooh, okay. Yeah, let's keep going. Excuse me, sir. I'm trying to record epic Minecraft gameplay. Start throwing some chests down on this little platform and begin storing the items we need for the build right here. So now with the basic supplies gathered, we are going to begin building the actual farm itself. And this time, instead of starting with the exterior of the XP farm, we are going to start with the inner workings of the farm. That way we can use the farm as we go along to help keep our tools alive while we collect the rest of the supplies we need to make the farm look pretty. And I'm basically building the same creeper farm that was in my hardcore world, using small spawn platforms with trapdoors and carpets to prevent every type of mob from spawning except for creepers, and connecting the platforms together at the bottom with stone and water buckets to create a funnel for the creepers to fall into. I have to navigate these platforms and remove all of these torches, and I'm going to block off the bottom of this build and throw down the water buckets so the funnel can start working. And even though this farm doesn't have any walls yet, the creepers should still spawn when it's nighttime, so we can use this farm for now, albeit for only half of the Minecraft day cycle. But I'm gonna whip up a sword real quick and start using this creeper farm. It's so nice not having to stress about the durability of my tools anymore, I gotta be honest. We do still need to light up the top though, because we have some unwanted guests up there and they're kind of affecting the spawn rates, so they gotta go. I'm also going to want to take our scaffolding and tower them up to where our killing platform will be, and then I'm going to spend some time collecting experience. With over 30 levels collected, it's time to enchant this sword. And honestly, that's terrible. I mean, that's really bad, but I only wanted Sweeping Edge because this is going to be our killing sword, so I don't really mind. We're also going to murder some of these sheep for more food because we are running low on yummies. We'll get those cooking, and while we wait, we can test out that new Sweeping Edge enchantment. Oh yeah, this is fantastic. Yeah, this is much better. Now it's time to start gathering the supplies for the exterior of the build, the first of which is a bunch of grass and dirt blocks. Next up, now that we have restored both our pickaxes, we are going to head back up to the mountains to mine some more cobblestone and stone, because we are going to need more of those blocks as well. Maybe I should invest in a cobblestone farm. I feel like that would save us a significant amount of time. with all that stone collected, it's time that we start crafting up the next block we need, which is stone bricks. And then we are going to take those stone bricks and smelt them up once again to create some cracked stone bricks. And I actually think this might be the first time I've ever used cracked stone bricks in a build, which is kind of weird considering the amount of castle structures I make, but regardless, I'm kind of excited for this. Another stone type block we need is andesite, so we are gonna gup that shit down right quick. And then after that, we're going to need to swallow up some tuff, and I think we need to go deeper into some of these caves to find said tuff. So I'm a little nervous for that, but we should be fine. I am begging your finest pardon, get the fuck out of my game. Like, what are we doing? There we go. There seems to be a bunch here, so let's just grab all of this. Hey, and we even found some diamonds too. That's pretty awesome. I do need more of those. Wait, there's no way we found more. We got some lapis too, and some gold, and another vein of diamonds. We are up to 43 diamonds. Dude, people are gonna start to think this is scripted. There's no shot we just found more. I literally just got done with I've only been mining here for like 10 minutes. All right, you know what? Here are my coordinates for where I'm mining, and this is my world seed. Now you guys can go look for yourself, because I'm not even going to lie, that looks suspicious as full. Let's take all our tuff and the absolutely absurd amount of diamonds we found back to the surface and up to the creeper farm. Now, one of the more annoying blocks we need to get is dripstone, and I think the last time I found some was on my live stream a few nights ago, way out across the ocean, so we're gonna have to head out there. And just to quickly mention, you guys should have your channel notifications on if you want to see my live streams. It's a really good way to see a lot of footage that isn't included in my hardcore videos. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and like this video. I think we found it. Yeah, there we go. They're in this cave here, so let's grab some. We should only need one stack of this, but I'm going to grab a few just because I like this block so much. But now let's head back to base using our very helpful and trusty chest boat. The dripstone in our possession, there's just one more block that we need, and that's actually polished basalt. So we need to head to the nether and carefully navigate our way to a basalt delta and get as much of that as we possibly can carry. But now that we finally have all the blocks we need, it's time to organize them and start building. It has been very, very rainy today for some reason, but we have gotten the first half of this build done, which is the stone and dirt base. I do, however, want a winding path going up to the structure itself, so we are going to throw down some coarse dirt and some path blocks to help us get that looking good. But with that, it's time to get back to building. Alright my friends, the majority of this build is done and the creeper farm is fully functional. And honestly, I thought this farm wasn't going to be as efficient as the last one, but it seems to be working really, really well. And for the last step of this build, we are going to be throwing in some smaller details to help us get a more finished look. I'm also going to throw some torches under moss carpets to make sure this area is lit up without having any exposed lighting, and I'm going to slab off most of the rocks at the bottom of the build where the torchlight can't reach. That way no mobs can spawn anywhere other than inside the creeper killing chamber itself. Now the final details I want to put in go up in the holes that are dotted around the build. This island is supposed to serve as a prison for all the creepers, kind of like a creeper Alcatraz, and that's why it's so bland looking. And I added these holes around the base to make it look like there had been a few escape attempts, so we're going to fill in the holes with spruce fences and iron bars to make it look like the inner frame of the building has been exposed by explosions. But that is the build complete. I'm very happy with how this turned out. I know that perhaps this build isn't as vibrant and as jarring as many of my other builds, but I really do love the way it looks. I also experimented a bit with the dripstone and some mud blocks as well to kind of make it look like there are just some discolored patches in the build to add some extra texture and detail into it, and I think that worked pretty good. I also added this little dock area for us to pull up on our chest boat in. I think it's going to be very useful, and it's a good way for us to include natural storage for all of the gunpowder that we're eventually going to get. And yes, I know this base and all of the rocks are not connected to the ground, but the ocean in this area is just so incredibly deep that it would be very dangerous for me to attempt to do that right now, considering the fact I don't have respiration on my current helmet. But don't worry, as soon as I have armor that's going to allow me to stay underwater for an extended period of time, we're going to be connecting this thing to the ground in one of my live streams. I just really need to make sure that I'm actually going to live through that process first. We now have access to all the experience we could want and the ability to repair our tools consistently. So today I figured it might be time to tackle something a little bit bigger and switch up the formula a bit, which is why we are going to be building an entire fishing village in today's episode. Now, while I begin to collect some of the supplies we need for this build, I want to tell you why I'm doing this. And the goal for this series, or at least the goal for the beginning of this series, is to turn our entire starter island into one giant city. And we're going to have that city separated into different districts. For example, we're going to have this fishing and trade district, a mining colony district, of course we need a farming district as well, a residential district, and so on and so forth. And each of these districts are going to have a specific type of villager or multiple types of villagers that are going to be dedicated to said district. So for example, we're going to have a lot of our fishermen and Fletcher villagers inside the fishing district. That way everything will feel more alive and we will have a dedicated reason to visit each different place. Now I need to enchant this axe real quick. Efficiency 4, I don't know about that. Let's go ahead and craft up another one because that's not that great. Another regular efficiency 4. I mean, we could get efficiency 5 out of that, but that's still not the best. Also, if you're wondering where all of these places like this smeltery area are coming from, you guys really should check out my live streams. All of the interiors to my bases in hardcore I complete live in real time, so you guys should have your channel notifications on so you could check that out. But even though this axe isn't great, we're gonna rock with it for now, and we're going to get started with the first phase of this project. And I think we're gonna be starting over here on the southwestern kind of side of the island, and we're going to need to do a lot of terraforming, so all of these trees we're looking at right now kinda need to go. Alright, so with those pesky trees out of the way, we have a much cleaner area to work with. Now, this time around, in an effort to stay more organized with my build, I'm going to be taking some stone blocks and marking out some areas where we're going to need to separate the build into different sections. For right now, I think something simple like this should be good, just to give us a general idea of where we want things to go. Now, to get started with the actual building, we're going to continue using the stone that we've collected to start marking out where some walls are going to be, to kind of create a divider between where the actual fishing docks are going to go and the rest of the terrain. I'm also going to mark out some circular shapes around the area every once in a while as well to give us the opportunity to build some watchtowers. I want this fishing village area to feel pretty casual, but I do also want it to kind of be fortified at the same time. And I think that is a decent outline to get us started. Now it's time we go in and remove all of this dirt and stone blocks.
I think this is a decent sized area that we've cleared out here, and my brain is already starting to work out where certain things are going to go, so I have to get my body to try and keep pace with it, and we have to start building the next part of this project. So I'm going to continue with the stone here and start to create an outline of where some of the docks are going to go. And I think having 3 on the right and the left side like this is going to look good, and then we're also going to build diagonally a little bit and have some diagonal docks in the middle too. I'm not sure how that's going to look, but hopefully it turns out well. Okay, I think that actually is going to look really sick. Now we just have to continue with the other side. And there we go, I think that's a decent outline. Now I just have to remove one more layer of blocks, and then we're going to start filling all of this in. And we're going to start this process by connecting the outline to the ground to get the shell of this thing done. And we're going to start at the bottom with some tuff and work our way up into cobblestone and then into andesite. And I'm hoping that's going to give us a little bit of the illusion that the stone that's been submerged underwater is, of course, you know, more wet and a darker color, and the stone that's above water is a bit more sun bleached and dry. Now I am running out of supplies, so I'm going to spend some time gathering some tuff, stone, and andesite to make sure we have all the blocks we need for this part of the build. I'm also going to use our shiny new axe to collect some spruce wood to make sure we have a wood block that's going to accent the gray stone nicely. Now before we install all of the wood and support pillars, I'm going to start up a live stream and we're going to fill in this entire area. Now with that done, we're going to take some of those spruce logs we got and start placing them around the outside edges of the docks here to create some support pillar looking structures. And I think that looks pretty good. I spaced them out every like 3 to 5 blocks, so we're going to keep going from here. And the next thing I want to do is come in with some spruce slabs along kind of the bottom area of the docks where the actual docks themselves meet the water. And I'm only going to do this on like 1/3 of the structure itself, because I want to have a smaller, lower area for the tiny ships to dock, and the other area is going to be for the bigger boats to dock. I'm also going to throw down some fences around the area as well to make it look like there's more support. Now we are going to get around to building some smaller ships later in the video, but I'm going to be saving the construction of bigger boats for another time, and I'll explain why we're doing that when we get to it. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. I'm also going to create a ramp off to the side here. That way the people, or I guess the villagers of this village, have a place to wheel all of their supplies up the ramp and onto the docks from where they're being dropped off by the ships. Yeah, I like that a lot. But now it's time to start building up the retaining walls of the dock area. And we're going to go for a traditional, simplistic, medieval style of wall here. I mean, it does not get more Minecrafty than this. People have been using this type of wall design for years, but this is going to match the vibe of the rest of this place. I'm also going to try to place some buttresses every now and again throughout the wall to give us another extra element of depth to the build. But with that done, now what I need to do is connect the top of the wall to the rest of the land, and we're going to do that by mixing in some path blocks, some coarse dirt, and the stone and cracked bricks that make up the wall. And I am going to try to make this transition from stone to dirt as smooth as possible. That way we have a cool walking area for our villagers to actually access the top of these walls and to get into the watchtowers. I think that looks decent for the moment. I do have more plans for what's going to go up here, but for now, this will do. Now, earlier during the live stream, something I didn't show was I also spent a lot of time collecting a bunch of mud blocks. And we're going to turn these mud blocks into mud bricks, because we're going to be using all the different variations of the mud brick blocks to create the roofs for the watchtowers. I think a splash of brown or almost orangish red color in this area would match really well. I also want to briefly come over to the right side of the docks here to finish filling out this area so that it looks more complete. And we're going to do that by just adding another retaining wall and building up another watchtower. But now with the wall basically complete, I want to start working on the center staircase that's going to be leading up to the village portion of this build. So I'm just going to start clearing this little area out and adding in some spruce slabs and some other types of slabs to give us a smooth walkway. And I'm actually going to build 3 different pathways here, kind of branching off in different directions to give us a little bit of variation in our choices for walking directions. I think that looks really good. Now we have all these pathways and a little spot for us to like plant some trees or have some rocks in the middle too. But now that that little segment is done, it's time that we actually start marking out where all of the houses are going to go. And I'm going to start doing that by just using some more stone to outline the base foundation of the builds. And I do want some of these houses to also be diagonal, so we're going to mark those out as well. And I'm still not great at building diagonals, especially roofs, so this is a bit of a risk for me. But with the outlines laid out, it's time to use those foundations to build up the rest of the structure. And we're going to start with this corner lot towards the front of the project. And again, I want to go for a very traditional medieval look to these builds, starting with a stone, cobblestone, and andesite base at the bottom, and working our way up to a spruce log, or rather strip spruce log frame, and a spruce and oak wood roof. And we're also going to be having some variations in the roof colors as well, by including some of those mud bricks in that we gathered earlier. Now, while we continue to do this, I want to fill you in with the plan for the rest of the city that's eventually going to be completely covering this island. I do have kind of an idea for a class system for the villagers, so I want the lower classes to be located towards the outer rim of the island, and the more upper classes going towards the center of the island closest to where the mega castle is going to be. And if you notice, in some of these buildings, I'm including a little bit of diorite. Now, the plan is to have the mega castle and mega base be completely made out of calcite and diorite, just like our starter base was, to give the appearance that it's been sculpted out of marble. And the plan is that as you get closer to the mega base itself, the regular villager houses will begin to have more of that marble incorporated into them. They'll have fancier roofing, better materials, and more decoration. And as you move outwards towards the outer rim of the island, you will see that quartz and diorite less and less, and the houses will go from being stone and mud bricks to primarily wood and wood roofing. And I think that will be a pretty good way to show the progression of wealth in the world. But for right now, we're going to keep things pretty simple by building just a couple of shacks and small houses. This also isn't going to be a very big village, because to be honest, there's no reason for anybody else to live here other than the fishermen villagers who are actively participating in the trade that goes on around this area. Now, even though there's not going to be a lot of villagers living here, I decided to take these 2 separate houses and combine them into one inn and tavern type of building, where both of the main structures are connected at the top, and you have a cool little breezeway that you can walk through in the center. This way, all the people that are traveling to and from the docks to receive their items have a place to stay and a place to eat. This is starting to look pretty cool, if I do say so myself. Especially from down on the street view here, everything feels pretty claustrophobic, which is exactly what I'm going for. However, I will say all of these houses are looking very bland right now. So we are going to begin placing in some decorations, and we're going to start with some spruce fence gates. We'll just come along the bottom of all of the houses here and place them directly beneath the stripped spruce wood. And we're just going to open them up and have them face inwards to make it look like they're bunch of little supports helping to hold the building up. We're also going to come in and place some doors everywhere, so that way we have where the entrances are going to be mapped out. And I'm also going to take some scaffolding and use those as window blocks. We'll throw some spruce trap doors down to act as shutters as well. And in addition to that, I also crafted up some composters and grindstones, and we're going to use those to make some little wheelbarrows. Now we can bring in some fences and some lanterns to give us a few light sources every now and again. And I would eventually like this entire area to be mob proof, but we're probably going to have to get to that in one of our live streams because I really don't have time to go into that much detail today. But I'm also going to take some leaf blocks and use some oak trapdoors and spruce trapdoors, I guess, too, to create some little window flowers and plants. Next, I want to build a little well sitting outside the tavern area. I think it would make sense if all the fresh water was collected right in front of where the restaurant is. And this is also going to give us a bit more separation in our walking paths. I also want to go back up to the houses for a moment and create some bay windows every once in a while to give us some more variation. And down towards the bottom of the build where the paths begin to split, I want to replace a lot of this dirt with stone and stone stairs and stone slabs. This way it will look like there's a natural rock formation with dirt and grass and moss kind of growing on top of it. And we're also going to do the classic medieval Minecraft village thing where we throw random hay bales inside of trapdoors everywhere. Another thing we're going to do is replace some of the regular blocks with walls inside of the actual house builds to once again just give them more depth and shadows to make them more eye-catching. Now we're also going to take some tough blocks here and we're going to create a few chimneys dotted around the place to add a more lively element to the build. Now I don't want this area to be a lag machine, so some of the chimneys will be on and some of them will be empty and off. Now that that's done, we can create some more coarse dirt, and we're going to come in between all of the buildings here and start working on some more pathways. Another little detail I want to add is using campfires and spruce wood planks, spruce wood slabs, and spruce wood trapdoors to create these little piles of wood every now and again to make it look like the villagers have stockpiled up on firewood. Now, more towards the inner section of this town, I want to start adding some stone walls and different variations of stone walls and stone blocks to create a few miniature gardens. I'm also going to be using some azalea plants as well as moss and some tall flowers to give us a pop of color. Now, the pop of color is not the only reason why there are going to be flowers everywhere. I did want to add a little bit of lore to this area, so here's what I was thinking. I figured since this is a fishing district, it probably smells really, really bad, like fish and random other things and salt water from all the items that are being transferred at the docks. So to me, it would make sense that in order to combat that stinky, poopy smell, I think that might have been the first time I said poopy in 10 years. What the fuck? But in order to combat the bad scents, the villagers have planted flowers and bushes and all kinds of foliage everywhere to help mask the smell. And in a few minutes when this is done, we're also going to start building some custom spruce trees to make it look like they've grown really big pine trees to also help with the smell. I'm also going to build up some like half makeshift retaining walls around the area just to help keep villagers corralled when we actually start transporting them over and moving them into their houses. But now that that's done, it's time to start building all of those pine trees I was talking about. And I am actually very proud of these custom pine trees because this is the first time I myself have 100% from beginning to finish designed a custom organic tree. I always tend to be scared of trees and stay away from them because they can be so complex, but I'm actually really enjoying this one. Alright, so with that done and out of the way, I've decided to turn shaders off for a couple of minutes just so I can better see how I'm designing this next part of the build, which is actually going to be a gatehouse. Now, we're going to be following the same designs that we used on the rest of the build, starting with cobblestone at the bottom and working our way up to lighter colors of gray. And I want this part of the build to actually go up pretty high because I do want it to stand out a little bit. Plus, you have to keep in mind that this is the entrance to this section of the city, so it's important to make a statement. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually kind of struggling to design the top of the roof here, so we're gonna take a break from that, and we're actually going to start by connecting these two pillars together. I want there to be another giant archway here that you have to walk through in order to get to this section of the village. And we're also going to come below the arch here to add in some more stairs and regular blocks to give the arch more of said archy shape. Yes, archy shape, whatever. But there we go. I think this looks pretty cool. And I love how when you're standing at the top of the build and walking down, you could see directly through the dock right to the ocean water. Now, even though I do like the way this gatehouse is looking right now, I still think it needs a little bit more pizzazz to make it look more interesting. And I'm going to use the same technique I actually used on the creeper farm to create some water stains everywhere by starting with smooth basalt, working our way to cobbled deep slate, and then to tough. Yeah, okay, that definitely looks better. So we're just gonna do this in a few more places like so. And oh yeah, taking a step back, that's actually looking pretty sick. I like the way this is turning out. Now I'm also going to come in up top here to design a few windows by just using some spruce fences. And to be honest, these things don't look that great, but they don't really need to, because again, this is kind of just a fortification. It's a place for soldiers to shit. It's a place for soldiers to shit? I did not mean to say that. It's a place for soldiers to shit. It's a place for soldiers to sit and watch over the rest of the village. I'm also going to use the same water stain design on the inside of the arch to not only, again, give us more of that illusion of erosion, but to also create some shadows and to make it darker on the inside of the arch. Oh yeah, and this thing definitely does look good with shaders too. And so now it's time to start tackling the right side of this build, or rather the right raised area above the wall here. And we're gonna start by cutting back some of this dirt to make room for some rocks. I think it would be pretty cool to kind of have a layered rock feature, because eventually on top of this, we're also going to be building a lighthouse. And I know it doesn't make a lot of sense to have a lighthouse this far inland, but I think having an extra building that's poking out and taller than the rest of the builds up in the top right corner would be a really unique thing to break up the skyline of this project. And so we're just going to start by outlining all of the dirt that we've pushed back with stone and stone stairs and stone slabs, just like we did everywhere else. I think that's a good look for the first layer. We're also going to throw some andesite in as well to give us more block variation and texture. And then we're just going to repeat this same process a couple more times to give us that layered effect. And while I do this, I figured now would be a good time to do the comment of the day section. But today, instead of a comment of the day, we actually have the winner of the art contest that I ran over on my Discord server, which if you haven't joined the Discord already, you probably should. There's a link in the top of the description. And so today, I'd love to give a big shout out to Coco over on Discord. They created this awesome character art of my character surrounded by my space whales in the end dimension, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful. And so today, they are the recipient of an exclusive Discord role, and I'm going to be linking all of their socials if they have any in the description of this video, so please make sure you go check them out. I'd also love to give a huge shout out and thank you to everybody else who created art for this art competition. We had a lot of really good entries, and I'm super grateful to each and every one of you who took the time out of their day to create art for this channel. Thank you all so much for the participation, and we will definitely be doing this again in the future. But now we are done with the rocks and the moss, and I think this looks absolutely sick. I also took some time adding some campfires into the area as well to have little places for, again, like the watchmen to sit around them and warm up when it's really cold at night. And this is also going to help us naturally light up the area. But with those rocks complete, it's time to start doing a little bit of terraforming here at the top of this mound to get ready for where the lighthouse is going to go. And I'm going to try to create the main lighthouse tower off to the left here, and then have an actual residence attached to it down to the right that's a little bit shorter than the lighthouse itself. Okay, so the lighthouse is basically done. Now I just have to figure out a way to kind of get this thing to light up in a medieval type of situation. This is not, we're not to like the point where these guys have electricity yet, so this needs to be a firelit tower. And I'm gonna try to just put some netherrack up here and some flint and steel and hope that the wood parts of this build don't burn down. Yep, and that's exactly what's happening. Okay, we're losing. The roof is... Oh god, the roof is gone. Are you kidding me? Dude, it's not even close to where the wood is. How did this catch? Oh, this is not good. This is really not good. Okay, I think we're all right. Just gotta rebuild this top segment here and we should be good to go. So we're gonna run back into the nether here and try to collect some magma blocks. I'm hoping that those will give the illusion of like hot coals and glowing fire without catching the wood on fire again. I don't actually know if magma blocks can do that, so we're taking another big risk here, but I'm hoping it's gonna work out. Oh yes, sir, that works very nicely. Look at how cool that looks. Dude, we're definitely gonna have to incorporate this in other parts of the island as well. That looks sick. And this village so far is definitely starting to come together. Now I just gotta add a couple more pillars onto the lighthouse, and this little build, well, it's not really little, but yeah, I guess it's kind of small. Not really. This build, or this section of the build, will be done. Looking good, looking good. Now again, I want these villagers to be able to kind of free roam the area, so I'm going to add another unique element between the gatehouse and the lighthouse. And so we're going to create kind of like a broken and ruined wall that's been overtaken by moss and grass. There we go. I think this looks very nice. Now this area does feel a little empty, so I am going to add kind of like a broken down tree or a tree that's been chopped down to make it look like the villagers are clearing this area to make room for new houses. And while we're at it over here, I might as well add a couple of stacks of logs as well to make it look like there are some more chopped down trees. But now that a majority of the village area is complete, I want to work our way back down to the docks and start creating some more decorations. And we're going to start by building these kind of miniature cranes that are going to be lifting up items transported by the boats. And in the spirit of full disclosure, this is not my own original design. I think I saw this on Pinterest somewhere, I'm not really sure. But anytime I ever build cranes on docks, this is the design I use, so to whoever created this in the first place, I apologize for stealing your build and I will try my best to give you credit. I believe it may have actually been Trixie Blocks from a while ago, so shout out to him for that. And I think adding one of these every other loading dock platform would look pretty good. Yeah, okay, I like the way this is turning out. Now we're going to go over to some of these and we're going to add some carts that are being lifted up by just throwing on some chests and some other random wooden blocks, and then adding trapdoors around the edges to complete the look. I'm also going to create a much smaller one that's just one block of hay surrounded by some trapdoors. And I'm also going to add a wheelbarrow here off to the side with some hay in it as well to make it look like the wheelbarrow is getting loaded up by the crane. Now, in order to help light up this area, I'm also going to add some lamp posts dotted around the place. And this is just going to be a couple of regular fences with some trapdoors on top and then a lantern hanging from them. But with that, it's time to get on to the bigger segment of this build, which is adding all of the workstations and shop stations that are going to be on the actual dock itself. And I want to start by adding some tracks on the ground to make it look like all of the carts that have been going to and from the docks have left some dirt trails everywhere. And this will also help us to get a good idea of the layout of the shopping area. And then we're just going to build up some of the shops. We're also going to decorate the area with various types of blocks to make it look like just a ton of items are flooding in from all the different boats. Now the section off to the right here is still looking pretty empty, so I want to add kind of a, I guess, open storage house type of build. So we're just going to throw up some spruce pillars and we're going to try to design a pretty smooth roof that slopes upwards using slabs and trapdoors. And we're also going to decorate the roof a little bit using some oak trapdoors and oak wood to give us some more light splotches on there and to make it look like there are some holes in the roof. But I think that looks decent. Now I'm just going to take some empty bookcases and we're going to build up some shelving units inside here. And we're going to throw on a back wall to give us a little bit of separation from the outside. Now we just need to throw down some more shelves and place some chests and barrels on top of it. And we're also going to be using the same design that we used outside to create some fishing nets using some cobwebs I collected from a mine shaft and some trapdoors. There's also the spot over between the storage area and some of the market stalls that's a little empty. So we're going to continue with the decorating and throw some barrels and chests and piles of wood everywhere to help fill it in. And from above, I think this place is turning out pretty awesome. Now I just got to open a bit of a hole in the back wall here and create a little bit of a doorway. And this is actually a hallway that's going to lead to our string duper. Now, the reason why I want a string duper is because if you didn't know, Fisherman Villagers and Fletcher Villagers both have an option to trade string for emeralds, and so having this string duper is going to be incredibly overpowered. But now with that done, it's finally time to get started on one of the last parts of this build, which is making the tiny boats. Alright, so after some trial and error, I think we've got a cute little design here. I actually like these things a lot, and they definitely match the vibe of the rest of the village. Now, I'm going to also attempt to create a diagonal one. I don't know how this is going to look. My god, that looks like trash from above. Holy shit.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
That looks nothing like the other boats. Actually, from down at the side, it's not that bad. Maybe we just don't look at it from above. We're not supposed to be seeing it from up there anyways. Now, I went back to live streaming a little bit ago to get some trades with villagers done, and a lot of the people were pointing out that the area where all the rocks is still kind of looks empty. But I like the idea of the rocks being pretty visible, and I think it helps to make the lighthouse stand out a bit. So I think a good compromise here would be to build 1 or 2 houses that look like they're under construction. I mentioned earlier that these villagers had some knocked down trees and some piles of wood because they were making room for new houses, so it would make sense if we were able to actually see some of those new housing units being built. But with that done, I think that's pretty much it for this entire build, but I really like the way it turned out. Now I know it's not complete yet, and there's nothing in the market stalls, and the villagers haven't even been moved yet, but that's because I'm saving a lot of the more finer details for my live streams so we have something to do, and I may or may not want to build a villager breeder on the island, so I'm going to hold off on transporting villagers until I know for sure what I'm going to do with them. I also mentioned earlier that I wasn't going to build any big ships, and that's because I've also been thinking about creating a separate section of the dock area and making that a shipyard, but I think I want that to be its own video. But to be honest, I'm very happy with how this area turned out. And again, I know right now that it may not feel complete, but trust me, as we begin to build the rest of the island, this is all going to come together and work seamlessly. And now that that's done, I figured it would make the most sense to start working on the next part of the island, which is the area directly above the fishing village. And I think it would be pretty cool if we made this a farming area. Now, it's not going to be an entire district like the fishing village with a bunch of different houses, but we are going to have a couple of massive farms stretching across the length of the island. We're going to have a farmstead with a farmer's house and a pig pen and horse stables. And we're also going to build another house with a windmill attached to it and some silos as well for us to store all of the wheat we're going to be collecting. But we're going to get started nonetheless. And instead of starting with building today, we're actually going to start by grabbing some sand from our storage room, and we're going to run up to our creeper farm and grab a bunch of the gunpowder that we've been collecting over the past couple of episodes. Now, I'm sure some of you can see where this is going. We're going to be making a bunch of TNT. And the reason we're doing that is so that we can go to the nether and do some TNT strip mining to look for netherite. Because we're on to episode 4 and we still only have diamond armor, so I think it's high time we actually complete the armor set. So we're just going to craft up as much of it. What the is going? What just happened? What was wrong with the dolphin? How about you guys? Did you see that? Anyways, with our TNT collected, it's time we head into the nether, and we're gonna dig down to about Y level, anywhere between 10 to 15, and we're going to begin this very dangerous process. Alright, returning home, we managed to get ourselves 44 ancient debris, which isn't bad, but I gotta be honest, I was mining for a good couple of hours there, so I don't actually think it was considered successful considering the amount of time we spent in the nether, but at the very least we have enough ancient debris to cover most of our tools and armor, so I'll take it. So with about 11 pieces of netherite collected, I'm going to kill some of these sheep here to get us food so we can start preparing for the next portion of getting netherite armor, which is going on a hunt for upgrade templates. Now I know you can find these in bastions, but I'm very nervous about doing this. I haven't challenged a bastion yet in this world, and it's been a while since I've done anything remotely PvE or PvP related, so yeah, this kind of has me on the edge of my seat. And I have no strategy whatsoever, so the second I find a bastion, I'm full charging bullheadedly into this. No plan, raw dog. It's definitely going to be one for the books. Okay, I have stumbled upon another fortress here, but it doesn't really look like there was anything good in here, so we're gonna leave it behind and move on. I gotta be honest, I've been looking for about an hour now, and I really thought I would have found one by this point. And literally, just as I say that, I find one. These piglins are actually being very annoying right now. Oh my god. No, okay. We're immediately on to eating golden apples here. I don't really need to use one, but I'm gonna do it just in case, because I know how brutal those piglin brutes can be with their golden axes. Alright, there we go. First wave done. Dude, we're not even inside the bastion yet, and we're struggling. Alright, but let's get up here and get into this chest. Okay, we got the music disc, the pig step thing. We got a piece of ancient debris in this one. It's not bad, but not what we're looking for. No upgrade templates. And so with that, unfortunately, we are going to have to challenge the rest of this bastion to try and get what we need. Alright, so I finally found the upgrade template, and I got the hell out of Dodge. We had a few close calls there, I'm not gonna lie, I was sweating bullets for a little bit. But now we are back in the comfort of our home, and I can use our remaining diamonds to help us duplicate these upgrade templates. And we'll just start with a netherite chest plate. I think next we should do the leggings, and then for right now we are finally going to get back our Season 1 netherite sword. Oh yes, sir. I have definitely missed this thing. Now, I'm going to hold off on upgrading our boots and our helmet. One, because neither of them have mending on them, and I'd like to complete that enchantment list before we put netherite on them. And also because we have finally run out of diamonds, so I can't duplicate any more templates right now. So we're going to wait until either later in this episode or the beginning of next episode to actually start completing the netherite set. But actually, now that I mention it, we have so many emeralds, I want to run over to our librarian here and actually do some trading for some mending books. And I think 6 mending books will be good for now. This way, at the very least, we don't have to worry about the enchantment side of things, and we can just focus on getting more diamonds when the time comes. But now that we've got at least a little bit of netherite armor and a netherite god sword, I want to do another very dangerous project today, and I actually want to try and trigger a raid. Now, I'm doing all of this in an effort to get myself more protected in this world. I don't know why, but this time around I still feel very uncomfortable, and I've been having a lot of close calls, which is making me really nervous. You know, of course, losing my last hardcore world that lasted over a year and I clocked over 500 hours on, that's still fresh in my mind, so maybe I'm being paranoid, but at the very least, I want to get some Totems of Undying today. That way, our chances of surviving a near-death experience will increase tenfold. Now, that being said, I actually have to live through this raid in order for it to work out the way I want it to. But with that said, it's time to get this raid started. We have done it, folks. I'm not gonna lie, a couple close calls again there. Again, like I said, I'm not having great luck, so having all of these totems is going to be insanely nice. Now, another thing I wanted to quickly address is that I have changed my totem texture pack. It used to be my little mincy texture, but I've actually opted to switch that one out for the blinking totems texture pack. And honestly, the reason why I'm doing this is because I feel like a bunch of other hardcore YouTubers just use their skin as their totems, and I honestly really just miss the default look of the totems, so we're going to be sticking with the default pack for now. Now, another reason I'm mentioning this is because this would be a really good time for me to shout out my live streams, and that's because YouTube has started implementing better viewer rewards like super chat goals. So by sending me super chats in my live stream, I've made it so that you guys can actually upgrade my Totems of Undying from regular totems to emerald totems to diamond totems, and I have a lot more planned in the future with this system, so definitely make sure you have your channel notifications on and come hang out during my lives. We have a lot of fun over there, and we're building a very close and tight-knit community through my live stream, so consider checking it out. But now that I'm feeling better about my chances of survival, it's time to get on to actually building the project for this episode. And I'm going to commit a few Minecraft war crimes here by creating a diamond hoe. Go ahead and put efficiency 4 on it, but that actually is not good enough, so I'm going to make another one. That's right. 4 out of my remaining 5 diamonds I have decided to use on a diamond hoe. I know how you guys are going to feel about that, but we're going to be building a farm, so I think it actually makes sense this time that we use a diamond hoe. And we're going to go ahead and get efficiency 3, unbreaking 3 on the second enchantment. I will take that, and yes, I am also going to combine this hoe, and then I am also going to throw a mending book on it. But with that done, we're just going to clear out a few of these trees here to make room for the actual farm. Alright, so with the trees out of the way, there is a bit of terraforming I need to do. However, this time the terraforming is not going to be anywhere near as extreme as the terraforming was for the fishing village. I honestly just need to clear out some of this dirt and place down dirt in other areas to get a smoother look to some of these hills here. I'm also going to mark out a bit of an area where a pathway or a wall is potentially going to go towards the back of the build here. Without spoiling too much, I would like this empty section here to actually be the mining colony. And although we can't start that in today's episode, there's nothing wrong with getting prepared for it. But other than that, I think the terraforming is pretty much done. One of the only things I have left to do is take down this beehive little enclosure here, and we're just going to relocate it into a couple of chests for now. That way the bees are safe and in storage and out of the way. I would also eventually like to have an episode based on a honey farm like I did in season 1, but that's probably a ways away, so I'm not going to make any promises as of right now. But with this area properly cleared and set up, it's time to actually start building the farm. And we're going to begin by digging a bunch of holes all over the place and placing water in them to make sure that the farmland can actually be saturated and crops can grow. Now, with the help of my live stream chat, we decided that one of the best blocks we could use to cover some of the water splotches are azalea leaves and the blossoming azalea leaves. I don't know if that's actually what they're called right now because I'm not looking at my screen, but the azalea leaves with pink flowers in them. Now, one of the reasons why I'm doing this is one, because I think it looks decent, but also two, because the leaf blocks are one of the easiest blocks I could get. I mean, people recommended that I do bamboo trap doors and then put the yellow coral fans on top of it. And as cool as that would look, it really would just take so long because I have so many holes to fill, no diddy. And I do also want it to look like there are some dead patches in the wheat field every now and again. We're going to be leaving some dirt blocks and some open blocks with some grass growing on them to give us a little bit of variation. But alright, the top portion of the land is done being filled in, and I think this area is looking pretty good. Now, I also want to mention that I installed a resource pack called Tall Golden Wheat, and this is to give us, well, obviously wheat blocks that are 2 blocks tall. We could have just gone with regular vanilla wheat, but I wanted to shake things up a little bit and do something different. Now we just need to continue tilling a lot of this ground here, and I'm going to be doing this farm section by section. So everything that we're tilling right now is going to be a part of the wheat farm, but we're also going to be having other sections where we plant carrots, potatoes, beetroots, pumpkins, and even some flowers. However, earlier in between episodes, I made a bit of a mistake here that's going to set us back about an hour or two. I had been using this area to bone meal and grow those really tall spruce trees, and those giant spruce trees spawn podzol, and I forgot that you cannot till podzol. So I have to dig all of it up, replace it with grass, and then get to tilling. It's not a very big area, but it's an area that's large enough to set us back a little bit, which it's not that big of a deal, but kind of annoying. Alright, so with most of the wheat area tilled, it's time to come in and I want to do another very classic Minecraft medieval style of build here. And we're going to be taking some cobblestone and some stone to build up some kind of retaining walls to give us a pretty and natural looking rock outline to the farming landscape. I'm also going to bring in some stairs and some slabs to make the rocks a little bit more detailed. And we are going to bring in, again, some azalea leaves to give us a little bit of shrubbery around the area as well. But now that the shrubbery and rocks are done, I'm going to run over to the plains biome here, and I'm going to just use my hand and some water buckets to clear out a bunch of grass to get us a bit of a jump start on our seed collection so we can actually fill in this wheat field. But with all the seeds collected, we're going to jump into a few more live streams here, and we're going to build up the rest of the sections of this farm. And there we go, guys. It's not fully grown yet, but this farming district is starting to look really cool, and I'm very happy with how it's turning out so far. I even added a section with roses to give us a bit of a more red color and a pop, and I added all different kinds of sections of plants and food blocks here, and don't even get me started on how cool this stuff looks on the map. But now I'm going to start transferring all these items out of these chests and moving them over to the left of the build here because it's time to start working on the farmstead. And we are also going to take down our nether portal and put that away for now. Now I just need to do a little bit more terraforming and dirt removal to get ready for these houses. But with the area set up, I'm now going to travel off of the main island towards one of the smaller islands that are surrounding my base, because I'm actually going to need to collect some dark oak wood. I want to change up the palette a little bit here to get some different colors going, and I think this would be a good addition. Now, the other thing I need to collect before we head home is sandstone and smooth sandstone, because again, I'm going to be going for a very traditional medieval style of house here, but instead of using like white concrete or white terracotta for the walls, I want these builds to have a little bit more of a worn down yellowish hue to them, so that's why we're opting to go for the sandstone. So now I think I'm going to start building the foundations here, and I actually want these to be a different material than the rest of the walls. So we're going to go with cobblestone and stone for the bottom part, and we're going to use those dark oak logs to build up the frames a little bit, and then we're going to fill in the rest with that sandstone and smooth sandstone. Yeah, I think this is definitely a good look. I'm also going to add on a spruce planks section to one of the smaller buildings here. This is probably going to be where the pig pen is, and then I'm also going to make a diagonal build, and that is going to be the horse stables. But now with the foundation set, let's begin building up the rest of the structures. So with the skeletons of the main buildings complete, I want to come in here and do a little bit more terraforming using that stone and cobblestone wall design that we had earlier, just to kind of give us some extra layers to the build here. Now I'm also going to come to the back of the build here and start laying out some wooden fences, so that way we can have a few different enclosures for cows and sheep. But there we go, I think that looks pretty good at the back of the houses here. Now, I'm also going to come to the front of the build and do a similar design. This way we can have a completely enclosed farmstead for our farming villagers, and they should be completely safe from mobs once we finally decide to actually move them into here. Which we're probably not going to do that today because we haven't even moved the fishing villagers into the fishing district yet. But it's time that we also start putting in some more little details on the rest of the builds to make them feel more complete. I'm also going to build out a little section here for a feeding trough of some kind for our horses. I think something like that would look good for now. And I'm also going to come to the top of the farmer's house here and add in a couple of like little outcrops for some windows in the roof. And we're also going to create a couple piles of barrels and hay bales dotted around the area. Now, one of the other things I wanted to do is come to this kind of front section of the build here and create another little separate fenced in area for some chickens and a chicken coop. And we're going to be using some of that pod soil for the ground here and some coarse dirt and regular dirt mixed in. I do want this chicken coop to be pretty sizable. I could throw a very small automatic chicken or egg farm into here, but to be honest, I don't really ever see myself needing eggs, so I don't mind collecting them by hand. I mean, chickens seem to lay eggs pretty frequently, so once we get a decent number of them in here, I don't really think we're going to be needing an automatic farm. It would probably be a very simple, easy thing to do, but I'm lazy and I'm not gonna do it. We're also going to do the classic chicken coop design here and throw some dead coral fan blocks on the ground to make it look like the chickens are nesting in different places. And I also want to start using some coarse dirt path blocks and more pod soil to create some of the pathways that are going to be leading us around the base, just to kind of make this place look like it's actually been lived in. We're also going to start tilling up some more sections of the actual farmstead here. We're going to be planting some beetroots and potatoes, and eventually we're going to be throwing some composters down as well. This way the villagers here have access to the career blocks they need, which are the composters to activate farmer villagers, and they have things to throw in them. And I think this area is actually starting to look really cute. I not gonna lie, I kind of wish this was the starter base, but we're gonna keep going nonetheless. But this view here from the farmer's house overlooking the farm and our starter base looks absolutely beautiful. And I went ahead and fired up another live stream, and I finished detailing a lot of this place. We have all the composters we need, and I threw down a couple of wheelbarrows. All the beetroots and potatoes have basically grown. I added some campfires around the place as well, added a bit more detail to the feeding trough, finished adding some mud on the interior for the pigs to play in, and I also collected a donkey and a horse on stream, and we still need to name these guys, so if you all have any recommendations for horse names, leave them down in the comments. But we managed to find a really cool looking all black midnight type of horse, and we threw some diamond armor on him, and I just think he looks gorgeous. And back here I also added a little feeding station and a drinking trough for our cows, and I began breeding them up a little bit. We only have 3 right now, but that number is going to quickly grow. And I also moved our sheep into their pen as well. This area is really starting to come together. However, we do need to get started on the next part of this project, which is clearing out the walking pathways that we're going to be using to actually traverse the farm. And we're going to start with the main big one towards the bottom of the wheat field here. And I'm going to have it kind of curving along, following the path of this primary cobblestone wall here. That way we get a bunch of different angles to view the farm and the starter base and the fishing village, and we're going to be creating some really cool lines of sight with this. I'm also going to be creating a much smaller pathway leading up to the farmstead itself. I think that looks decent from above, and as I'm walking this thing, you can definitely tell that we are going to get some really cool angles of all of our different builds. Did I just spawned 4 chickens out of 1 egg? Wait, can that happen? Hold on a second. In Minecraft, the chance of spawning 4 chickens from an egg is 1 in 256, or 0.39%. Okay, so that's not as incredibly rare as thought, but that's still pretty cool. Anyways, time to move on. Okay, so I kind of made an oopsie. In the excitement and adrenaline, I guess, of spawning 4 chickens, I forgot to press record. So basically, the pathway is done. Fortunately for you guys, I didn't do that much work other than replace the farmland with more coarse dirt, pods oil, and path blocks. I also used some spruce slabs and some spruce trapdoors to create a smoother transition between the different levels. And I think this is looking much better. I'm just glad right now that I remembered to turn the camera back on. But cool stuff aside here, I want to begin clearing out a small area to the left of the farmstead for us to actually put the windmill and the windmill house. Now, I want this build to be very similar in shape and color and design to the rest of the farmhouses. So we're going to be sticking with the stone, cobblestone, dark oak wood, sandstone type of vibe. And I don't want this windmill to be super elaborate either, so we're going to be keeping it pretty small and simple. Now, if you're one of my Patreon members, you'll probably recognize this build because you guys got access to it a couple of days ago. Now what I need to do is just put the finishing touches on this thing, namely connecting it to the ground so it's not just floating here. I'm also going to tear up some more of the farmland to create some more worn down pathways, and I'm going to install some spruce plank flooring. But there we go. I think this thing is a really cool addition to the farmstead. But now I want to come to the back right section of the build here behind the houses and the horse stables, and I want to build up 1 or 2, probably 2 silos that we're going to use to store all of the wheat that we collect. And we're just going to work our way up using, again, the same color palette and block palette that we've been using on the rest of these builds. And these things aren't done yet, but we're going to take another quick look at the map here, and it's just, yes, this place is definitely coming along. I do want to come in here and make these look a little bit more worn down, so we're going to put in some stone stairs to make it look like some parts of the stone have fallen off and maybe there are bricks missing and things. I'm also going to put in some pulley systems using some chains and grindstones. This way there's some kind of mechanism that looks like one way or another the wheat is actually able to be carried up and placed into the top of the silos. Even if the actual entry point to the silos isn't visible, it will get the point across. And I'm going to put some oak trapdoors and spruce trapdoors in to make it look like there's some patchwork going on. You know, perhaps some of the bigger portions of the silos that are missing where the rocks have decayed, the villagers now replaced that and covered it up with some makeshift wood planks and stuff. There we go. I think these are great little additions to the build. Now we just need to come in again and make sure the pathways around this area are all finished. And then we're going to work our way down to this area of the build here to start working on one of the things I'm actually most excited for in this project, and that is the little ruined castle area. Now this area serves no purpose other than to look kind of cool and add some world building. You guys have been saying that my projects in this world need a bit more story elements to them, so I think this is definitely going to help with that. Perhaps maybe from now on in these videos, you guys should begin to watch out for some more hidden details and ruined structures like this. Maybe in the past in this world there was another civilization that lived here first that got overrun by these new villagers and all of their structures decayed and were left to ruin. But there we go. I think that is definitely a neat little addition to the area. Now I need to start working on some more of the pathways that are actually surrounding the farm. That way we're able to create a smoother transition from the farmland itself to regular grass and to other parts of the build. But while we do this, I figured it would be a good idea to do the comment of the day section of this video. And today, instead of just addressing one comment, I'm going to be addressing a couple hundred comments at once. But a lot of you have been asking about the texture packs and resource packs that I use in this world. Now I do have a mods video on my channel that shows off a lot of the mods and resource packs that I use. It's my most recent one that I uploaded a couple weeks ago, and in that video I specifically state that that particular pack was not for my hardcore world, but I was referring to my season 1 hardcore world. The pack that is in that video is almost exactly the same one that I'm using today in this world, so keep that in mind. Now since then I have also added a bunch of new mods and resource packs, and the reason why I haven't come out with a full pack on my own yet is because I'm still working on it and developing it, and I don't want to post a mod and resource pack that is incomplete. So I know it's taking a while and it's probably getting annoying for you guys that you don't have an NC pack yet, but I really want to make sure this is done properly before I drop it to you. I do not want to give you guys something that is incomplete. There are just a lot of people that I need to talk to and a lot of different things that I need to get set up. Now I also want to come in here and create a few small wagons around the area just to make it look like there are actually villagers that are traversing these paths. And another thing I want to do is build one of my favorite small builds in Minecraft. I want to dot a few scarecrows around the area. And so we're going to do this by just putting down a cobblestone wall with a fence on top of that, followed by a bale of wheat, some fences on the arms, and of course some jack-o'-lanterns and carved pumpkins for the heads. And I also think the new-ish variations of the bamboo slabs and trapdoors would be perfect to make some small straw hats. And I think it would be pretty cool if we have most of these just be carved pumpkins, but one of these be a jack-o'-lantern. I feel like somehow it kind of makes it feel like that this one particular scarecrow maybe houses the soul of a villager or something, to add a little, I don't know, I'm just trying to add like a little ghost story to the area. I think it would be cool and make a lot of sense to have like a possessed scarecrow next to the ruined castle, just to give the world a little bit more history. But perhaps this scarecrow helps weary travelers and, you know, lights up the way for them. It doesn't have to be malevolent. All right, so I have a few stacks of spruce wood left over from the last couple of builds that we've done. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start breaking a lot of this down, turning it into more stripped spruce logs and spruce trapdoors, spruce fences, and spruce fence gates, because we're going to be building more of those pine trees that we made in the last episode. All right, I really love these things. I know it's the same design and you guys have seen them before, but I think they help add a lot to this world. Now I'm going to come back in the farm here, and as much as I love this giant oak tree, I actually want to replace it with something else. Now if you look around, you'll see that in between segments, I added 2 new texture packs to the hardcore world, and that is the Autumn Dark Oak Leaves and the Autumn Birch Leaves by Lidwini? I don't know, but they basically make birch leaves yellow and dark oak leaves red. And the best part about these is that they're not biome dependent, which means we can place them in whatever biome we want and they will retain their colors. Now, I think it would be pretty cool to have this village set in kind of like a fall theme. So I'm going to be harvesting a bunch of these new yellow and red leaves to combine them with some of the darker greens to make it look like the leaves are beginning the transition from being alive in the summer to dying and falling off during the autumn season. And so I've come up with a really big tree design that looks similar to the pine trees, but it also has a bit of a fluffier look to make it look like it's, I don't know, some kind of grand oak tree as well, you know, a tree that actually does lose its leaves in the fall time. I think combining all these colors together could create for a really cool scenario, and it's also just going to give us more color in our world in general. But there we go. I think this tree looks pretty cool. It is a little too bulbous on top, so we're going to spend some time trimming it down, fixing it, and making it look a little thinner. But there we go. I think that looks much better. Now, something to note while I show off this tree, guys, I don't know if I'm going to keep this texture pack. I actually want to run this idea by you guys and see what you think about it. Now, it's important to note that I am eventually going to start working on my own texture pack that is going to add colors that are more akin to what I'm looking for. I honestly think that as cool as this looks right now, it looks a little weird that these new leaves aren't bushy like the rest of the leaves are, and I honestly think the reds and yellows are a bit too vibrant. They stand out a little bit too much. But I do like this idea in concept. I'd also like to quickly just show off the tree right now to let you guys know what it looks like without these vibrant colors on, and I still think it looks insanely good. So either way, with or without the texture packs, I think we have a good design going here. But definitely let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Would you rather me keep all the default leaves, or do you think color leaves in a texture pack is something you would like to see me pursue and work on? But with leaves aside, that's pretty much going to do it for today's episode. And now I know that this video may not have been what you were expecting. I know there isn't as many buildings in this area as there was in the fishing village, but that's also kind of the point. The main attraction of this area was meant to be the farm and the plants and crops that grow there. It wouldn't really make sense if we had houses for tens or hundreds of villagers when there's normally only I feel like this area would only have like 5 villagers that are dedicated to farming at the most. I mean, even in real life, you normally have 1 to 3 farmers handling an absolutely massive plot of land. So I think it's natural that there aren't as many houses. And I know that also kind of towards the outer edge of this area, it looks a little incomplete, but just like what I did with the first episode and this episode too, as time goes on, you all are going to see things come together. I understand that this is still very much a trust the process moment for you guys, but I am happy with how everything turned out. Maybe I'm being too hard on myself.
And with that complete and the harbor area complete, we are now left with this kind of empty space off to the right. So today I figured it would be a good idea to fill it with the mining district. This is where all of our blacksmith type villagers will live. And this is where we're going to store all of our stone type blocks, like stone itself, cobblestone, granite, diorite, andesite, you get the idea. But we're also going to have this area be the entrance to our new strip mine. Now, I don't think we'll get to actually building the strip mine in today's video, but we're at least going to tackle the above ground portion of this. Now, I don't really have a plan for the order in which I want to do things today, but I know for a start, I want to defeat the Ender Dragon. So we're going to begin by finally completing our netherite set of armor, throw some netherite on our boots, and on our helmet as well. Get me that nice cover me in debris achievement. I like the way this looks. We're also going to take a lot of our remaining gold and use that to craft up some more golden apples. That way we can get regen. We're going to make ourselves a new shield as well. And heading over to the farming district, we are going to steal one of these pumpkins that we're growing and use it to make a jack-o'-lantern so we can throw that on over our heads so that we're safe from Endermen. Now, I've mentioned this a few times at this point, but I still am feeling very unsafe in this world. I think losing the last hardcore world has really given me a decent amount of PTSD, so with this Ender Dragon fight, I think I'm gonna go a little bit overboard. I'm actually gonna head out to this plains biome here, and I haven't slept for a few days, so some phantoms should start spawning soon. And I absolutely hate dealing with phantoms, but I need their phantom membranes to make slow falling potions. Yeah, dude, phantoms are definitely
What, dude, they're just one of the worst additions to Minecraft, but this is a really useful potion. And I'm just now realizing that I don't have any nether warts, which means I need to go back into the nether to find another fortress. Yeah, okay, just give me a second. All right, I finally found one. I'm also going to collect some blaze rods while we're here, so we can get blaze powder to use as fuel in our brewing stands. And you know, while I'm here, I think I'm going to hunt and try to collect some wither skeleton skulls. I don't need these for the ender dragon fight, but I would like to make a beacon afterwards because there's a lot of terraforming we're going to have to do in this episode. So getting access to haste would be, it would just make this process so much easier. You know, I've been here for longer than I'm willing to admit. But anyways, I think we got a pretty good drop rate of wither skeleton skulls. It's just that this fortress was not spawning them very frequently, so I mean, I spent a good 4 to 5 hours here. It was absolutely ridiculous. But with the skulls collected and the nether warts acquired, it's time to start heading home. I'm also just going to keep breeding up our sheep as we go along, and we might as well do the same for the cows. But alright, returning home, we're going to throw our wither skeleton skulls into this chest here because we're not going to be using them yet. But I also spent some time in a warped forest killing some endermans, so I took some of those ender pearls and threw them together with some blaze powder to get ourselves the eyes of ender that we're going to use to find and activate the end portal. Now we can just head over to our brewing stand, throw in a nether wart to get us an awkward potion, and we're going to follow that up with a Phantom Membrane to get us the slow falling potions. And I also think I'm going to throw a piece of redstone on here to make sure that that slow falling lasts longer. And with that, our alchemist, the brewing portion of the video is over and we can move on. Now, another thing I'm going to need for this ender dragon fight is a bow of some kind. I would like to get infinity on it. First enchantment, so we get just power 4. That's, yeah, horrible. I don't know, my luck has kind of been hit or miss in this world with enchantments. I don't know how I feel about that. But let's make up another one here, see if we can't get infinity. We'll give it another shot. Nothing. It doesn't look like we're getting anything good out of that. I might as well just think I might re-roll and punch 1. I just did a 3-level enchant for punch 1. Okay, bow number 4. Give me, I really just want something good. Unbreaking 3 and infinity. Okay. That's really all I wanted. You know, we got power 4 on it too, so we're going to throw these guys together in our anvil here. And of course the anvil breaks, so I guess we're making a new one real quick. There we go. Let's throw that down and then get all of these guys together in our new anvil. And power 5, punch 1, unbreaking 3, infinity bow. That will definitely do for our first ender dragon fight. I'm also going to take a bunch of grass blocks with me just to mark out where we've been, because we're probably going to be traveling to a bunch of different end islands as well. And I'm going to run back over to the farm here, and I'm going to use a bunch of the wheat that we've been collecting to get us a ton of bread. I'm kind of low on animals right now, so I don't want to kill any more of them until I rebreed them and get their numbers back up. So although it's not the best source of saturation and regeneration, we are going to run with bread as our main food source for this ender dragon fight. But with that, it's time to set out. And it looks like the eyes of Ender are leading us out into the ocean in this direction, so we're just going to start heading way far out. And I think, oh, there it goes. It goes straight down. Does that mean, I think that means that we're right above it, right? Yeah. I see something. What is that big bulging structure? Is this the stronghold? Do we have some kind of weird terrain thing going on here? Hold on, let's dig in and see what this is about, because I've never seen this before. Well, I can hear mobs. Oh my god, it is the stronghold. This must be a little bit of a problem with tectonic then. A bit of weird terrain generation that is mildly annoying, but we'll work with it. All right, let's explore this a little bit, see if we can't find the portal. Immediately we're finding a library though. I do like these places, I think they're pretty cool. Aren't there supposed to be chests everywhere though? Why can't I can't seem to find any. Oh, here's one. Okay, Curse of Vanishing, not interested. But we did get an eye armor trim, which is pretty cool. So I'll take that. And then there should be another chest up here, which, where is it? Okay, it's in the corner here. This has some interesting things, another armor trim. Frostwalker 2, okay. Again, Frostwalker 2, Fire Protection 3, and Fortune 2. Those aren't bad books. but I don't have space for them, so we're gonna leave all the books and the trim in this chest and just remember, or at least try to remember. I'm definitely gonna forget they're here, but we'll come back for them eventually. But with that, it's time to get all of these Eyes of Ender in the portal frame. And off we go into Minecraft's deadliest dimension. Go, Ender Dragon has been defeated. It feels good to be back here, man. Well, I mean, I'm not looking forward to bridging over the void, but it feels good to be in what is considered endgame Minecraft. We're just gonna scoop up the egg real quick, and then we can go out and start looking for some shulker boxes. Yeah, this is definitely this part right here I have not missed at all. Alright, I'd say that was a pretty good success, so it's time to head home here. We got 26 shulker shells, which is not bad. I would have liked to have gotten more, but for now, that's probably going to be more than what we would need. And with the sun rising on a new Minecraft day, it's time to move on to the next portion of this project, which of course would be quickly gathering some obsidian and then heading right back out to the end. And like I said earlier, we're just going to clear out a little block underneath of the end portal here. We'll throw down that obsidian we got and pair it with a very peculiar shaped stack of soul sand, activate the wither, and then defeat it like it's nothing. And just like that, we have another star for a beacon. And we got a really cool invulnerable witherhead, which, if you guys don't know, is a part of another mod that I have installed that adds a bunch of different mob heads to the game. They don't grant you any special abilities or anything. They're literally just for decoration, but I figured maybe in the future, something along the lines of I collected every head in Minecraft would be a cool video title. I mean, just look at this menu here. There are literally hundreds of them, so maybe that is something we save for a future project. But anyways, we're just going to head back to the overworld and get that beacon crafted up. Now we're going to start heading back over to where we're going to start building the mining district. Did a horse drown? I know I was gonna say, I know skeletons spawn on them, but I thought that maybe it had to be during a rainstorm or something. I don't know. Fortunately, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. But anyways, we're heading up to the mountains real quick because I need to search these areas for some more iron because we need to be able to fully complete the beacon, and I have finally run out of iron. I don't have enough anymore, so we need to collect a bunch of that. Alright, and using our fancy schmancy new shulker boxes, we have got a bunch of stone, cobblestone, and we have almost 5 whole stacks of iron ore, which is absolutely insane. So we're going to be taking that back down to the base, breaking it up, and seeing just how much we get. Everybody, leave your guesses in the comments right now. Tell me how much iron you think we're going to get from this stack of ore. And the answer, almost 10 stacks. That's insane. That should get us all the way through. Maybe. I don't know. We might be a couple blocks short, but we'll see. Now I just gotta spend the next couple of minutes getting this all smelted in the blast furnace. Alright, so we ended up with 2 stacks and 33 blocks of iron, which annoyingly, I believe, is just like 3 to 6 blocks short. I think a full iron beacon requires 2 stacks and either 36 or 39 blocks. So that's incredibly annoying, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm just going to search all of our other chests around the world, and I definitely have some iron hidden elsewhere, so I just have to find it and we should be good to go. So let's come to the top of the hill here, right next to the wheat fields, and we'll start building up this beacon. I love the sound of beacons powering up, dude, and it's especially satisfying. I don't know, just the first time you load one up in a world, hearing that noise is just perfect. One of my favorite parts of the game. But let's throw an emerald in there and get ourselves haste 2. And now it's time to start terraforming the mining district. And while we do this, I'm going to address the comment of the day, or rather the comments of the day, because a lot of you guys were pointing this out. But at the end of last episode, I talked about the possibility of installing custom resource packs to change the colors of certain types of leaves in the game. Most notably, changing the dark oak leaves to be red and the birch leaves to be yellow. And so I've been spending a lot of time thinking about what I want to do with this, but a lot of you guys pointed out that the resource packs I had in the last video really didn't work. You guys pretty much agreed with me and what I was saying, in that the leaves were too bright and the trees that I made almost kind of look like Christmas trees, not like they had fall leaves on them. So one of the things I'm considering doing, and the thing I think I'm going to do, is actually use a shader pack to change leaves when I want to get specific visuals. In fact, BSL shaders actually have a season setting where the leaves will change colors depending on what season it is in the resource pack and shader pack. And this was brought to my attention by a YouTuber named Witty, so a quick shout out to him. He's also got some really cool videos on his channel, and right now he still has less than 1,000 subscribers, so go give him some support because he's a really good builder and I like the stuff he's got. But yeah, anyways, I think I'm going to refrain from using custom resource packs for now to change the leaves and possibly rely on shaders, something that is more consistent and fits the theme of the world a bit better, but we'll see as time goes on. Anyways, back to the video. Alright, that beacon was definitely a lifesaver. This actually only took me about an hour and a half of mining to get this entire hill gone, but this looks absolutely insane. It looks a little weird right now because the terrain is all flat and I haven't worked out all the details, but this is a really good start and is going to give us a good idea of what we're going to be working with. And I mean, just standing against the wall here, let me zoom the camera out. You can really get a feel for the scale of this thing. It's just absolutely huge. But we're actually going to start making this thing even bigger by marking out another area for a lower section of the mine. I want this to have about 3 levels to it. That way we can have a bunch of things that are visually interesting going on. Like, I'd like to have the top level be primarily residential buildings and things. The secondary level be forges and whatnot, places where all the ores are actually getting smelted down. And then finally, the lowest level is going to be where all of the mining takes place, and that is again where the entrances to our strip mines are going to go. And I think that's a decent shape to start with. Trust me, this will look a lot better when it's done, but let's keep going. But now we're gonna head back to the starter base for a quick minute and get a bunch of tough blocks using our new shulker boxes. I'm so happy we have shulker boxes again, man. I needed this storage so bad, it's not even funny. But anyways, we're going to gather some tuff. We're also going to take all the andesite we can get our hands on as well, because we're going to be needing that. And I'm going to finally be using all of the wool that we've been collecting from the sheep farm, because we need some light gray wool as well. And I'm going to be using the light gray wool to create highlights on the rocks. So hopefully that will look good, a way to simulate light. What the f was he doing? Why? Okay, wait. Fucking speak, bro. Why are all the animals in this world tweaking out, man. They all have issues. It was the dolphin last episode. It's the skeleton horses this episode. For some reason, it seems like they all like to show me what kind of tricks they can do. But anyways, let's kill some of these squids, get some ink sacs for black dye, and then we'll combine that with white dye to get light gray dye. And then we'll dye the wool. Lots of dye. There we go. We got a good bit collected. Now let's just make all the dye. I need to find a different word to describe what I'm doing right now. And we will dye. Okay, that's it. I'm done. We're getting the light gray wool and we're moving on. So now that I have all the blocks collected, I'm going to be using some rock presets that I made to help me design and outline the shape of, again, the rock formations in the actual mining district themselves. I do want them to look natural, but I also want them to be kind of squared off in certain places to make it look like they have actually been mined out and like there are people actively working on them. And if you're interested in getting access to this rock pack, you can find it over on my Patreon. And with most of the rock work done, this place is looking a lot cooler. Now, I've left an empty crevice in the side of the mountain here because I would eventually like to put like a cracked open amethyst geode in there. I think it would be pretty cool. And there may or may not also be some lore elements going on there with the amethyst crystals, but we'll get to that in another episode. For now, I need to start getting ready for the actual buildings that are going to be in this area. So we're going to start by getting some deep slate tiles ready for the roofs. And over the past couple of days, I've been live streaming a lot and I actually collected a ton of dead coral blocks. So we're going to be using those as stone textures. And I also spent a lot of time during my lives mining dark oak wood in dark oak wood forest. So we're going to take some time here placing all of those logs down and converting them to their stripped variants. With all the blocks ready to go, it's time to start building the first structures that are going to be going in this area, which is actually some medieval kind of almost townhouse looking buildings. And I'm going to have these lining the right portion of the area here. And this is meant to be the residential part of the mining district. So the story of the world goes that this area is so rich in resources that the villagers have basically been mining here for years. So in order to make the process more efficiently, they decided to move a bunch of the blacksmith and miner villagers right to the mining district and set up kind of temporary housing for them, so they don't have to walk very far to and from their actual homes and their jobs. They're just right there when they need to be. I think it's a really fun way to add some story to the world while also adding a cool visual element to this place. I think these things look really cool now that they're done. I'm saving all of the finer details for more towards the end of the video. I'm going to basically build up all of the skeletons of the buildings first, and then I'm going to go back in and add, flower boxes, windows, things like that later. But for now, we're going to start working on the pathway that's right outside of the houses here. And I'm going to do that by just knocking this hill back a bit, adding in some path blocks and some coarse dirt, and just overall shaping up the area. I'd also like to add a couple of stone staircases leading up to some of the entrances of the townhouses, just to give us more layers to work with. And as we go along, I'm also going to be adding some spruce slabs and some spruce trap doors to make the experience of walking up and down the hill a little bit smoother. It's not going to be perfect because it's so steep. We are still going to have to jump in certain spots, but this will definitely help make it look better and feel quite a bit smoother. I'm also going to be adding some fences in some places as well, where the pathway is kind of really high off the ground to protect anybody from, well, obviously falling off and plummeting to their death, because that wouldn't be great. And I do plan to actually have villagers here, so this needs to be dummy proof eventually too. This is the first step of that. And there we go. I think that adds a lot. That looks really good. I'm happy with the way this is going. But now it's time to get started on the next structure which we're going to be building, and this structure is actually one of my most favorite builds that I've ever designed. I know I say that about a lot of my builds, but as far as, small-ish little houses go, this is definitely my favorite one. And so not only is this going to be the primary entrance to our main mine shaft, but off to the right, we're also going to have this absolutely massive forge area with these really tall smokestacks, and eventually we are going to place a super smelter inside there. And you guys will see at the end of this, I think it turns out really cool. All right, yeah, that is definitely a really good start. I love how the smokestacks kind of blend into the rocks. I really wanted to make it look like this building was kind of carved out of the mountain, and then some wood and other blocks were just kind of placed on top of it, and I think I got that look down pretty well. But the only problem is that I only designed the front of it and not the back. So we have this big open space on the back here that we need to come in with some of our other blocks, and we need to, one, complete the roof, and then we need to add some more little details with some rock work to make it all blend seamlessly together. But we'll just bring the roof across in the back here using some more deep slate tiles and cobbled deep slate stairs, and then we will fill in the empty part of the roof with some calcite and diorite and stripped dark oak wood, and then we can put in some of the smaller details. But there we go, I think that looks good. Now what I want to do is actually come over to the smokestacks here and use some walls to help create more of a chimney look. We're eventually going to have campfires with hay bales under them, so we actually get proper smokestacks, but we're going to leave it for now. And with that, I also want to come down to the mine entrance here and hollow out a bit more of a hallway and just get it shaped up a little bit better. It's not going to stay like this forever, but for now I think it'll do. All right, and that should be good for the moment. I'm going to leave some of the other smaller decorations, like including buttons and fences for windows and scaffolding for windows and things like that, more towards the end of the video, but this place is definitely coming along now. Now, the next building I'm going to make is another smaller forge off to the right below the residential area. Now this time I actually decided to include an outdoor forge. This way we could have some lava or magma blocks kind of lighting up that area and being visible from outside. And I also really liked the look of this build that I came up with. I added a little balcony on the front as well as a kind of secondary house off to the right. And again, I think it works pretty well and looks almost seamless with the terrain. All right, and with that done, we're moving on to the next portion of this side of the project, which is actually touching up some of the rock work around the outdoor forge. I do like the rock work I came up with along the outer edges of the trench, but a lot of the rocks run too close to the entrances to the buildings and to the forges themselves, so we have to remove them in some places to make sure we can actually traverse this area and get to where we need to go. But fortunately, that shouldn't take too long. And speaking of traversing the area, I'm now going to mark out the next place we're going to have a bunch of pathways, and I kind of want the pathways to loop around the entire secondary level here. I think that would look pretty cool. It's also going to add a bit more color to the area. It's going to break up all the blacks and grays that we have, and it's going to add in some lighter tones of brown. I mean, we already have a bunch of light tones with brown, but the ground right now feels way too smooth to be a natural mining area, so we're going to try to break it up with this. And I'm going to be using the same pathway I used on the right side of the build with regular coarse dirt, some path blocks, but I'm also going to be throwing in some packed mud in places as well, and eventually I may also add some cobblestone and andesite just to give us more texture. Now on the outer edge of this pathway, especially near the water, I'm going to be replacing all of the grass with stone because I really want it to look like that there's basically nothing growing in this area because there's just so much work being done, so many people walking everywhere, rocks being dragged from place to place. It would make sense that no grass could grow here. There we go. I think that is a pretty decent start. I'm definitely liking the way this looks a lot more. We're also eventually going to have some buildings down on the bottom here, so I'm not too worried about the area looking flat. We actually need it to be flat. This is one of the only times I actually see super smooth terrain as a good thing. But now we'll just come to the back portion of the mining area here, and we'll make the same pathway design looping around the entire area. All right, so this is looking a lot better, and it's really starting to look cool. I'm getting very excited. So now what I want to do is come to the top of the area here and build a bit of a platform and start connecting it with some stripped spruce logs. This is going to be a giant piece of scaffolding. I It debated having this be a lift, but I think I'm actually just going to have this be a giant enclosed stairway. That way we can have a bunch of different levels to this thing to access different areas of the mine, and we'll have a simple way to walk from the top to the bottom and vice versa of the mining area without actually having to walk through the residential district. But now that we got all the support pillars in place, I'm going to attempt to work upwards in kind of a broken spiral type of shape with slabs for our stairs. It's not going to be perfectly consistent. I also kind of want this to look like it was just thrown together. So there are going to be some places that are uneven, but it will generally follow the same pattern all the way to the top. And now that that's done, I'm going to come in and use a bunch of staircases to create some diagonal kind of support looking beams. And then I'm going to take some fences and place them all in between those support beams to add, again, more support. I want this to look very chaotic, like there's a bunch of things going on, and I think this will look cool. I hope this will look cool. This is one of those times where I didn't design things beforehand, so I'm kind of just winging it as I go along. Hopefully this turns out well. We'll see. We'll just see. Let me get back to it. Okay, that actually doesn't look that bad. I think it looks a little bulky for right now, but once we start adding other things around it again, I think it's going to work pretty well. I also still have to decorate and detail it, so that is a factor we have to consider as well. But for now, I'm going to head to the top of the scaffolding, and I'm going to build a railing out of oak fences, spruce fences, and spruce trapdoors. And so before we finish up on the finer details of this thing, I want to come down to about a quarter of the way up, and I want to start building out a little platform here where some more mining villagers are going to be building on, and I want to make it look like they have extended the scaffolding outwards on this level a little bit to help them access the giant amethyst geode that we're going to have going here. So I'm just going to cover this in spruce trapdoors, and then I'm going to add some fences for support pillars, and I'm actually going to add 2 in a row here to hopefully make it look like there's some kind of ladder going up to this thing. And then I'm going to throw in some fence gates for some more support, and in addition to that, I'm going to come in with some oak trapdoors to add some variation in the texture of the platforms. But there we go. I think that looks decent for now. It is definitely helping to add to the shape of the scaffolding, so I'm happy with that. Now we're going to go back over to the scaffolding and add some things like trapdoors into the mix to help make it look a bit more realistic. And there we go. That actually did a lot for the build. I'm really starting to like this. Now, up at the top here above the scaffolding, I want to include another little forge with a house attached to it. I was originally going to include a tavern here, but the tavern I designed in one of my live streams is actually way too big, which is really unfortunate because I really loved the design that me and Stream Chat came up with. So we're going to be saving that for another video, possibly including it in somewhere else in another town that we'll build on this island. But yeah, I've decided to replace it with what is going to be a little forge where the blacksmiths actually sell all of their weapons to people who are traveling by. Instead of weapons, I may actually have this be a hoe and shovel and pickaxe type of shop, because it would make sense that the majority of people who are traveling this road up at the top of the mining district live right near the farming area. So it would make sense if farming tools were sold here, but I'll get to designing the interior of this in another video because that's going to be a long process. For now, I'm just going to get both of the bases of the build started and go from there. But alright, with that little structure done, it's time to move on another part of this build, which is going to be taking place at the top here. And we are actually going to be building a crane. Now, this thing is meant to be here to lift all of the mined materials up from the bottom of the base up to the top, where again, they can be extracted, smelted down, and a bunch of other different things. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, this is not my crane design, although it's also not 100% accurate to the original design that I found. And I have absolutely no idea whose base design this is. I actually just found an image on Google and it wasn't labeled as anything, and there were no links to any other kind of social media. So I have no idea who came up with the skeleton design of this crane. So I do apologize for taking your build, whoever you are. Of course, I am going to be making my own changes to it, so I'm not going to be directly copying, but I gotta tell you guys, medieval machinery in particular is a category that I really need to work on. I still struggle with this a lot, which is astounding because a lot of the builds I make are medieval based, so you'd think I'd be better at designing my own machines at this point, but I am not. So there's definitely an area to be improved there. So there we go. I think that definitely fits the bill. So now what I'm going to do is quickly come back down to the bottom of the area here, and I'm going to start marking the foundations for what are going to be some more residential buildings and a storage building, actually. But with the foundations for these buildings set up, it's time to actually get to constructing them. Now, we're going to start on the main diagonal building here, which again is going to be the kind of storage house place. I don't know. Okay, so this is a little confusing. We're not actually going to be storing a lot of blocks in this small little place. This is mainly just going to be for decoration. We're going to store all of our stone blocks and stone type blocks elsewhere, but I still think this would look cool. So we're just going to keep raising this up a couple of blocks, and then we're going to get into building the rest of it and raising up the other two little houses that we have over here, which are going to be where more villagers live. With that, I want to move over to the left side of the mining district here, and I want to add another pathway leading up to the top of the base. And in order to make this pathway stand out, we're going to have to add some more rocks behind the main forge to kind of cover up the remainder of the grass blocks. And then we're just going to come in again with some more path blocks and coarse dirt for the actual walkway itself. And I'm also going to do some terraforming over to the left here, but I am going to leave a little bit more grass on this side since it is more towards the area of the fishing village. So I think some smaller rock formations with grass and possibly moss growing on top of them would look better for this portion of the build. And I gotta be honest, the shape of the hill, especially down towards the bottom here, isn't exactly what I need, so we're definitely going to be doing a bit more terraforming, raising the land up in some places and then pushing it back in others. And then, of course, we have to come in with some spruce slabs and some spruce trapdoors to help make the transition of the walkway a lot smoother. But I gotta tell you, that actually, when I was building that, it didn't feel right, but it looks really good from above. I love the way that this is all kind of turning into a giant oval or a giant circle. I'm liking it. But with that right portion of the walkway handled, we now need to tackle the rest of this grassy area down at the bottom. And I gotta be honest, I really don't like how it bulges out the way it does. So we're actually going to knock down the retaining wall on the left side that prevents us from getting to the fishing village. And we're going to completely clear out all the grass and dirt and begin raising up another pathway. And in between these two pathways, eventually at some point today, we're going to add in another little mining area with perhaps maybe a bunch of coal or iron being extracted. Alright, so taking a break real quick from working on the pathways, I have managed to complete these 3 little outdoor forges here again. I really like the way these look. The diagonal one isn't great, but we're just going to ignore it. We're not really going to be able to see all the fine details when we're just walking by quickly or looking at this place from far away, so I'm going to stick with it for now. But I do still quickly have to connect them to the ground, but that shouldn't take long. And with that done and my energy for building mines restored, we can move back over to this other little mining area that we just made, and we can start placing in some more scaffolding and some more staircases. And this time around, I'm actually going to use campfires as the scaffolding to try that out and see what it looks like, which I can tell you right now, it's already looking a lot cooler. And we're just going to do this in a couple of places to add more life to the build. I'm also going to throw some barrels down on the ground as well, and I'm going to throw throw in some patches of coal ore to make it look like the villagers have built up to the coal because they're trying to mine it and extract it. But there we go. I think this looks really good. Who would have thought that this tiny little area off to the left side here would add so much to the build? But now it's time to do what I've been waiting for the entirety of this project, which is going out and finding some amethyst geodes so we can collect amethyst to make an even bigger amethyst geode in the side of the mountain. Now, I have done so much mining in this world that I do know where 2 geodes are located. However, I don't know if this is going to be nearly enough amethyst for us to complete the project. But we're going to start by mining out the first one, and then we'll build with the blocks we have. And if we don't have enough, we can go out and locate the second one and use that one's resources to complete the project. We shouldn't honestly need more than 2. I'm really hoping we don't need more than 2, but we'll play it by ear and see how things go. Alright, so with the first amethyst geode done, we're going to start working on the bigger rock here, and we're going to take some of the smooth basalt we got and make an outline around the area. I really want it to look like that this geode has just been cracked open by blast mining. I think that would look pretty cool. So yeah, we'll just start with an outline of 1 or 2 blocks of smooth basalt. Then we can work our way inside a little bit and start adding a layer of calcite that's been built up. And then finally, we can start replacing all of these blocks on the interior here with amethyst. And now eventually I would like to build my own custom cave biome, and I would actually like this geode to be the entrance of it. I'm not sure when I'll be able to get to this project. I'm sure it's still a few months out, but a custom cave biome completely based around amethyst would be really, really cool. And there's also some lore with the amethyst in this world, so I think it would make sense if the majority of this island was above a bunch of giant amethyst geodes. And the way I'm explaining the story is that the amethyst is actually what gives the wizards and everybody who lives here their magical abilities. The entire island is meant to be built on a giant, like, amethyst meteorite, so I think that would be pretty cool if we actually did add some custom biomes that were just nothing but giant amethyst clusters everywhere. But that is a very ambitious project and definitely a ways away. But anyways, I think this thing looks pretty good. In fact, it looks really good. Now, unfortunately, as good as this looks, we do not have enough amethyst, so we have to go out and find the other amethyst geode, collect all of its resources, and then head back home to continue working. But with that done, the next thing I want to do is head to the bottom of the giant trench we made, and I actually want to have a bunch more amethyst geodes kind of weaving in and out in kind of like a serpent-shaped pattern all throughout the bottom of the build. So we're going to use all that brand new amethyst that we just got to do that. And then we're also going to completely cover the floor in some custom terrain. We're going to be throwing in a bunch of different slabs and stairs and different rock variants like cobblestone and andesite to make it look like the bottom of the ravine is actively being mined out, and so there will be a bunch of inconsistent patterns and weird shapes in the rocks. And there we go. I think that's a good start. We still have to add all the other amethyst geodes, but as far as texturing goes, this is looking pretty good. But as good as it looks, it could always look better, so we're going to finish adding all those extra geodes that I was just talking about, and then we can get to working on some other stuff. And by working on some other stuff, I mean adding some more scaffolding over to this portion of the ravine here. We're going to build it up in the same manner that we did with the bigger one, but this one's going to be a bit more janky looking and a bit more open. it's gonna look more dangerous. Basically, we're not going to have it completely covered in. We're just going to use fences and fence gates to kind of provide a little bit of a railing every now and again. And then on a couple of different levels here, we're going to come in with some more scaffolding, both made out of campfires and trapdoors. We're also just going to build up a couple more of these scaffolding places in other areas around the bottom of the ravine. And I also want to come across the center of the area here and build what looks like a bridge for mine carts. And I plan to add actual moving mine carts to this thing. I think it would be really neat to have a moving element in this build. I would honestly like to do a bunch of these, but I don't think I have the time. I am running out of time for this video, so we'll have to save that for something else. But this one giant bridge should suffice for now. And so now, finally coming into the home stretch of this build, I'm going to add a little bit of another scaffolding staircase that kind of runs along the side of one of these bigger geodes. I think this would look pretty cool and add a bit of a unique shape to the area as well. But once this is done, the area is basically going to be complete. So the last thing we'll have to do is just come in with a bunch of little small decorations and details and finish rounding out the build. And I'll most likely do that in a live stream or off camera. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started, and I will come back to you guys with the build complete. And so that is going to do it for today's episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I went around the base adding a bunch of new things. I even added like a little foreman's house down at the bottom of the ravine, a couple of little bridges like leading over the amethyst clusters, added some TNT with some red candles to look like dynamite, a bunch of barrels and ores thrown all over the place, some minecart tracks, and I did add the moving minecart just like I wanted, and I think it turned out great. Now again, I know the interiors of these buildings are not done, and for a lot of you that's going to be pretty disappointing, but we will be doing all of these interiors during my live stream, so keep that in mind and make sure you have your channel notifications on. Also, if you haven't already and you really enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. I want to thank you all so much for providing me with this opportunity. Becoming a full-time YouTuber is almost a reality for me. It's just around the corner, and this is a dream that I've been chasing for over 10 years. So to finally be right there, to have that goal within my grasp is a very surreal feeling. So thank you for everything that you have done for me, and I really truly do hope that my content is enough to repay you for what you've done. I figured it would be very fitting if today we tackled the entertainment district of the island. This is without a doubt going to be the most complex and most colorful build we have ever made in this series, and I am really looking forward to it. And I do briefly want to thank you all for 100,000 subscribers, but I'll talk more about that in another video. For now, let's get started on prepping the area for all of these buildings. And we're going to begin by finally clearing out the rest of the forest that's on the island. Everything is going to go. Every last tree. And they all need to go. This place definitely looks really weird with all the trees missing, but we're going to fix that. And we're going to start fixing that by taking some grass blocks and some dirt blocks and filling in a bunch of these creeper holes and helping to flatten and smooth out the land a bit more, just so that it looks better and so that we have some extra room to work with when we're building all of these new structures. I'm also going to briefly spend some time bone mealing some of our remaining spruce saplings, and we're just going to chop down all these tall spruce wood trees to get all the spruce wood we'll need for this first build. The next thing we're going to need to prep for this is a bunch of calcite. Now, I already have a lot of calcite, but I've mentioned before that the mega base that is eventually going to go here is going to match the style of our starter base. So it's going to be made out of white wool, diorite, and of course, calcite. So having that information in the back of my mind, I want to be able to save as much of our calcite as possible for that build. So we're going to go fly out to another mountain range and try to find some more. go, we filled up a couple of shulker boxes, so now we can safely head home. I gotta tell you, man, this mining area is looking so good, especially at night with all the lanterns glowing and the sparkling coming from the amethyst. So sick. But anyways, we're going to pick one of these mine entrances that I created here, and we're actually going to start digging down to see what we can find. And what we're looking for now is actually what I briefly talked about earlier. We need a bunch of diorite. So we'll just dig out this hallway, collecting any coal and iron we find along the way as well. And I think we found a pocket here, so I'm going to get to work on completely hollowing this out. And there we go. We almost have 2 full shulker boxes. Shulker boxes. Shulker. Just speak. And there we go. We have almost 2 shulker boxes full of diorite, so I think we're good to head back to the surface because that should be enough for this one building. And as I search through these other chests looking for the supplies that I know I already have that we'll need, such as stone and cobblestone, I want to tell you about this first building we're making. And seeing as though we're getting ready to celebrate 100,000 subscribers, I figured it would make the most sense if the first thing we built in this project was an automated rocket farm. So basically, this farm is going to house a sugarcane farm and be the main storage unit for all of our gunpowder, and we're actually going to use some auto crafters at some point today to help us, well, automatically craft rockets. That way we'll always be able to fly around in our elytra without having to worry about running out of fuel. Oh, and we're also going to make it so that we can launch proper fireworks out of this building to put on full brightly colored firework displays for holidays and things that can be seen from anywhere in the city. But unfortunately, before we can get to starting on that, I have run out of tuff, so we're heading back down into the mine shafts. We're going to create a new branch underground here, and we're going to go all the way down to Deep Slate and start looking for as much tuff as we can possibly get our hands on. With the tuff collected, the next thing we need is some mud blocks to create packed mud. So we're going to be flying over to the mangrove swamp to collect some of that, and then we'll be heading back home to the wheat farm to help us craft up some of that packed mud. There has definitely been a lot of back and forth in this episode so far. Unfortunately, that trend does not stop now, as we need to head to the Nether to collect the next block on our list, which is basalt. And I gotta tell you, no amount of hours of playing this game will ever make me not afraid of the Nether, especially in hardcore. And now that we have an elytra, flying around in the Nether just sounds like a recipe for disaster, so I gotta really be careful. But with that basalt collected, we are finally ready to begin building the firework farm. And so we're going to begin by getting an outline of the foundation down just so we can visualize where each part of this build is going to go. And the first thing we're actually going to build is kind of like this front entrance little area with another side entrance slash shack kind of made out of wood off to the right. And now a lot of this build is going to mimic the style of actual houses because I wanted to make it look like the villager family that lives here built their living quarters around the firework forge that they work in. So the plan is to have a bunch of house-like structures attached to these 2 giant pillars sticking out of the center of the build. And moving on from the front of the build, we're going to go directly to the right-hand side here, and we're just going to build up a couple more house-looking structures, and we're also going to be adding some like pillars or giant furnace kind of looking structures in the back, and I'll explain what those are for later. Continuing forward, we're moving to the back side of the build where we're going to build up 2 more pillars, a couple more little house pieces, and we're also going to be building another wooden part of the build to kind of just break up that stone and diorite palette that we have going on here. And we're also going to start building a bridge, which is also going to act as kind of a tunnel off to the right. And finally, we're going to complete that tunnel and bridge section and connect it to another pillar off to the left side of the build. We're also going to add 2 additional sections to the top of these pillars or forges, and we're going to complete the bridge by filling it in with some oak planks and stripped oak wood. Now I know what you guys are thinking, Incy, there are holes everywhere. This is not... What are you doing? Well, if you've been around the channel for a while now, I'm sure you guys already understand that the way I build, it is very much, as I always say, a trust the process type of scenario. I have plans for this and it's going to be really cool, but there are some other things we need to get done first. And we're going to begin by placing a lot of smaller details around the build, like adding trapdoors as more decoration, scaffolding for windows, mud brick walls for support beams, more trapdoors for window shutters, blackstone buttons to act as nails, spruce fence gates to act as support, also taking a quick photo shoot break to really appreciate the beauty of our creeper farm. God, I love this thing. And then just adding in some more buttons, some more fence gates, and of course some more scaffolding. I'm also going to come up to the top of the roofs here and add in some more trapdoors to give us more of that like kind of spined roof look that I did in the mining district. I think it looks pretty cool, and although we did it with stone last time, we're just going to try it out with some wood this time around. But now we're going to come to the inside of the tunnel here, and we're going to start by lining both sides of the entrance with trapdoors. And we're also going to be adding a bunch of stairs to the top as well that correspond with the nearest block on the outside of the entrance. That way it will blend seamlessly and we'll get a pretty cool kind of curved shape to the build. But then we'll just come in and finish off with those trapdoors I was talking about, and that definitely looks a lot better. We're also going to add some regular fences as windows in the middle bridge section here. I could have done scaffolding again, but I like to break up my window structures in my builds. I don't like them all looking the same. And then we're going to take some time to fill in some of the smaller holes that I have dotted around the build. I left these empty to make room for stairs and wall variants of different blocks to make it look like the building has kind of been falling apart over the years. You know, some bricks are missing every now and again to add a little bit of extra detail and depth to the build. I also love how when you're walking through this tunnel, you get a perfect frame of the creeper farm. I think that view was so cool. I'm also going to come to the top here and add a bunch of walls to the top of these kind of like chute structures. Now, these centerpieces are actually going to be where we fire off the fireworks for our big shows and displays that we'll eventually be putting on here in the city. I think having them centered directly in the middle of the build would make the most sense. And the three other chutes in the back of the build that I was talking about earlier, those are also meant to look like firework chutes as well. So although they're not going to be functional, I figured it would be pretty cool if we included three more, just again, to add more of an interesting look to the build. But with that done, it's time to fill in the bigger holes that you guys are seeing in the build. And I'm going to prepare you now. This segment of the video is going to get very messy because I am going to be trying out some new building techniques and really playing around with a bunch of different colors, so we'll see how this goes. But we're going to start by heading home and grabbing some cocoa beans for brown dye. I'm also going to need some white dye, some roses for red dye. Of course, we're going to need lapis for blue dye, and we're going to need to combine that with red dye to get purple dye. I'm also going to have to whip up a jungle tree, that way we can grow some more of those cocoa beans to get more brown dye. And I'm also going to be requiring some bamboo blocks, weirdly enough. Also in need of yellow dye. I am going to require some packed ice as well. I told you it was going to get weird. And to add to that weirdness, we're also going to need some cherry logs, some blocks of clay, and finally we're going to need a bunch of sand to smelt into glass. Now I'm going to spend a few minutes collecting a bunch of other blocks I need, like for example cherry planks, stripped cherry logs, and a bunch of different kinds of colored wool and colored glass. But with that done, I'm going to fire up Lightmatica and load in the preset I built to help me make this build. And I'm going to start just placing these blocks in different gradients around the build on the outside, and then covering them with different colored stained glass. And the goal is to create a situation where it looks like a bunch of colored dye and gunpowder has been flung all over the building. You know, we're going to be having a bunch of fireworks shot off from this area, so I thought it would only make sense that, you know, some of those colors spill out and don't land properly and actually end up hitting the build, staining it a bunch of different colors. I'm also going to take a quick moment to use some stained glass panes on the center of the build to again make it look like more color is streaming down the bridge area. And from afar, I think that works really well. Now, of course, when you zoom in, you're going to be able to see the individual blocks and it's going to look a lot more messy, but that's not where we're primarily going to be viewing this thing from, and that's what we have to keep in mind. That definitely added the splash of interesting colors that I was looking for, and it just helps to bring more character to the build. At least I think it does. But with the main part of this build basically complete, we're going to go ahead and move on to the terrain to make everything look smoother. And we're just going to replace as much of the sand as we possibly can with grass. And then we're actually going to start extending said grass to give us an opportunity to build more of a steeper cliffside that actually heads into the ocean. With all that grass placed, we're just going to come in here now and start layering some stone, while of course avoiding all of the hostile mobs that are spawning under the grass I placed. I don't know why I didn't put torches under there, but I'm definitely paying for that mistake now. But we're just going to keep going here with a couple layers of stone, and then we're going to come in with a bunch of stone slabs and stone stairs to help smooth out the transition. And the first portion of these rocks looks so good that I decided to extend this design all the way towards the back of the build and wrapping around the left side of it. Alright, so I have a bunch of blocks left over from the build itself, so I'm going to reuse a lot of these and actually build a little dock behind the firework farm. And I figured it would make sense to have a dock here since our creeper farm is just across the water, and one way or another this city or civilization would need to transport gunpowder from the creeper farm to where the fireworks are made. So if we had a little receiving and loading dock here, I think that would be pretty cool. Now this one isn't going to be anywhere near as complicated as the bigger one in the fishing village, but I think it'll still add a little bit of story building to the world here. Alright, I definitely think this looks okay and will do for now. I'm not really the biggest fan of the overall shape of it. I think it's a little too simple, but as far as the decorations go, I think we knocked it out of the park. I also added one of my janky little ship builds here too. But anyways, it's time that we move on to the meat and bones of this project, which is actually building the sugarcane farms on the inside, which are going to produce paper. And we're going to do this by using a combination of pistons, observers, and redstone. This is a very simple classic sugarcane farm design. You all have probably seen this before. We're going to go ahead and fill up this first tower with a bunch of these just stacked on top of each other. And then towards the bottom, we're just going to add a bunch of hoppers to catch all of the falling sugarcane. Now's the time that we make our first ever auto crafter in the series. And I gotta be honest, I really don't know how these things work. I know I need two of them, one to create paper and then the other one to create the fireworks out of the paper and gunpowder, and we need ways to funnel each block into them and make it all work together. This is going to get really complicated, and I don't know what I'm doing, but we're going to try for it anyways. But alright, I think I got everything working, and if we look in this barrel, yes, it is creating fireworks. That's so cool. I'm so glad that works the way it does. But now, off in the side entrance here, I have this chest hooked up to a bunch of hoppers. Now, this is where we're going to be storing our gunpowder. And we're going to have the gunpowder basically funneling in from this giant storage room, going into the auto crafter itself. So we're just going to finish off this storage room real quick. I know I really don't do interiors in these videos, but I figured I'd treat you guys a little bit since it's the 100K special. Might as well show off some interior building. And then we can also make some slabs for some shelves. And we can take out the floor and replace that with some stone, cobblestone, and tough blocks. And then we'll just start throwing some barrels and chests down. And we'll go ahead and put in a roof to separate the storage room from what could be a little housing section of the build. And I also want to design a ladder over here. And so if we place these two fences against a bunch of chests and slabs, they actually won't connect to them. So it'll give the appearance of an actual floating ladder. And that way we can have a bit more of a 3D element instead of having just like a regular ladder plastered up on one of the sides of the walls. And we'll just go ahead and finish off this back wall here. And then the last thing we need to do is just transport all of our gunpowder storage from the creeper farm over to the actual gunpowder storage room. Now, once again, I'm going to build another interior. That's 2 interiors in one day, guys. You're getting the full treatment today. The real NC experience. But yeah, I'm just going to spend some time decorating the entrance to this build here, kind of like the small workshop area. And I'm going to start by placing some bamboo blocks down with some trapdoors around it. I'm trying to make it look like these are the tubes that the gunpowder is actually shoved into that helps create the rocket. I don't know how well that's going to look. We're probably going to end up putting candles on top of these later, but we're going to rock with it and see how it turns out. I'm also going to use some item frames, and I do have the invisible item frame texture pack, so I'm going to use some of these to help create some hanging tools. Could also put like a shovel in the corner there to just, you know, some kind of tool or hand shovel to show like somebody's trying to, you know, scoop the gunpowder and put them into the barrel things. I don't know. I'm kind of winging it here. And I'd also like to create some kind of mixer off to the side. Well, this is going to take me a couple of attempts. And then we're also going to place in some barrels of dyed gunpowder too. Well, I mean, it's actually dyed concrete powder, but you know what I mean. And then finally, the last thing we need to do is create a couple of short clocks next to dispensers in the wooden bridge section of the build here. And this is what is eventually going to be our firework launching system. Now we're going to hook it up to a much more complicated system later, but for now this will do. Well, with that, I think this firework farm is done. And if you want to see the full display in full effect, you're going to have to watch towards the end of the video, because trust me, you're not going to want to miss that. But with that, it's time to get moving on to the next part of this project.
And we're actually going to be removing something instead of building something for this next part, namely this big piece of pink highlighted land here. I actually really would like for the entertainment district to be kind of separated from the main island itself, because we are going to be having other villager housing and living areas over here. So I kind of want to separate the place where people have fun and where people live. So we're going to be building this big ravine, kind of a giant cut in the ground that stretches the length of the island. And eventually we'll have a bridge connecting the 2 different places, but for now we're just going to dig it out and then build it back up a little bit to make it look pretty. Alright, so we have made quite a bit of progress. We have all the room we'll need to build back up the rock formations that I want. And I left these walls on the right and left side of the ravine here just to prevent any water from flowing in while we're actually building up the surfaces of the rocks. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with some mud and deep slate. And we're going to use this mud and deep slate to line the bottom of the river to make the river look deeper than it actually is. It's going to give it a much darker color, so it'll give the illusion of depth. And speaking of depth, if you want to dive deeper into the lore and content of youtube.com/NC, I recommend checking out my Patreon page. For just $3 a month, you get access to things like member shoutouts, behind the scenes videos and content, exclusive Discord roles, and early access to ad-free versions of all my YouTube videos. And for $10 a month, you get access to all those previously mentioned things, as well as the downloads to all my build schematics and world files. And I'd also like to give a shout out to all my current Patreon members and channel members. Your support is essential in keeping the channel going, so I really appreciate everything you do for me. Alright, so the rock work is done, and all the mud and deep slate and stone and tuff and cobblestone, all the different blocks I used are all in place. Now it's time for us to go in and fill in all the water.
But now that we have the island separated into two and we have all the water in place, I want to build a bit of a wall and a gatehouse on the entertainment district side of the island. And eventually we'll probably have another wall on the other side as well. I think it would be pretty cool if you have to cross through two different gatehouses in order to get to the entertainment district. But for now, we're just going to start with one. And I'm going to build this thing up by starting with cobblestone at the bottom, transitioning to stone, and then andesite towards the top. And I'm also going to be using some basalt and deep slate as well as tough blocks to help me create some shadows. I'm also going to use stone bricks for a little bit of extra detail and texture, and then I want to have a couple of spires or towers dotted throughout the wall. And I'm going to be using an assortment of spruce blocks and mud brick blocks to help get some brown tones in there. And then to stay consistent with the theme of the rest of the builds on the island, I'm going to be using calcite and diorite to add in some white coloring too. And for the towers, I actually decided to put some roofs on them, and I made them look as sloped and as pointy as possible. The reason why I'm doing this is because this is the entertainment district. I want it to be a little bit more fun and whimsical than everywhere else on the island, and I think that gets that message across pretty well. But since the majority of the wall is now done, I just have to go in with some stairs here to help finish off kind of the border, or I guess the railing on the top of the wall. Well, obviously, so that people and villagers don't fall off. And then I'm going to come in with a bunch of different wall variants to, again, just make this a safer place to travel. And then finally, I'm just going to decorate it some more with some spruce buttons to give a little bit more of that brown color spread out throughout the wall. That way it's not just on the roofs of the buildings. And with that, I think the wall is done. And you know, I gotta say, especially from a distance, I think the shadows that I built are working really well. Yeah, this is definitely starting out a lot cooler than I thought. I'm happy with it. Let's move on. And I'm kind of just going to skip over this next part of the video because basically what I need to do is just move a bunch of the resources that we've collected from where our normal storage area is to a temporary chest monster that's going to be housing all of the things we need for the entertainment district. But while I was moving all of those items, I realized that I had forgotten a couple of materials, one of which being dark oak wood. I need a lot of dark oak wood. So we're heading over to the dark oak islands that's right off of our starter island, and I'm going to throw down a beacon to kind of hopefully help me almost insta-mine all this wood. I don't actually know if you can insta-mine wood using a beacon. I do have an efficiency 5 netherite axe, but I don't know. We'll see. I mean, if it doesn't work, at least, I don't know, we'll look cooler while we're doing it. But yeah, I'm just gonna put this beacon down just because, and then we're gonna get to chopping down some trees. Another resource that we're going to need that I actually ran out of while I was building the wall is spruce wood. And instead of using up the rest of our bone meal, I decided to fly out to an actual taiga biome and chop down some of the trees there because we're never really going to be over in this area anyway, so I don't care if it looks really ugly. But with that done, I'm now going to fly out to a desert so that way I can get some sandstone and some smooth sandstone. And if you're wondering why I'm gathering all these weird type of stone blocks, it's because I want to have a bunch of different variations of housing in the actual entertainment district. You know, I said at the beginning of this video, I want this to be a very colorful and fun to look at build, so I'm basically just going to be throwing in as many different types of blocks as I possibly can. In addition to that, we're going to take a minute to go back to the mining district, and we're going to use one of these tunnels that we got started here to help us find some granite, andesite, and diorite, because we are going to be needing all of those blocks as well. Another chore on our list is actually getting a fortune shovel. And the reason why we need to do that is because I want a bunch of bricks in this build as well. So we're gonna be taking this fortune shovel and heading out to a nearby lush cave system, and we're just gonna scoop up as much clay as we could possibly get our hands on. But with that, we have most of the materials that we need. Anything else is kind of just straggler items that we can collect as we go along. So I actually want to start building a few of the houses, and I'm going to build all of the ones that are going to be along the main entrance or the main road into the entertainment district. So we're going to start by just laying these out, and then we're going to test some shop ideas on them quickly too. Alright, we got the main shell for these first 5 houses in order, so I'm going to attempt to start decorating some of them. And I think this first building I want to actually be like a rose shop. So I'm going to be using some mangrove wood to give us a little bit of a red texture to this build. Could even throw in some red and white awnings using some stairs, some diorite stairs and some mangrove plank stairs. And we can just throw down some roses and maybe some poppies too. And we'll get a couple different variations of pots in here as well. And I'm also going to use our invisible item frame texture pack to create a little sign to show that this is a rose shop using, of course, that item frame, a trapdoor, and some roses. I think that looks pretty good. That gets a message across, right? Yeah, good enough for me. And I think that shop looks pretty good. I think it looks a little empty right now still, but once we fill the street with other decorations, it's going to be pretty cluttered and chaotic, so trust me when I say this is definitely enough detail for this first shop. Now I just want to go down this line of houses and basically repeat the same process. And I think I want this first road to primarily be like a botanical section. We are going to be having a very large greenhouse, which I'm going to build later in the video. So for this first street, since it's going to be next to the greenhouse, I think it would make sense if like all of the flowers from said greenhouse are sold here. But with a lot of the shops on the first road done, we're going to come over here to the other side quickly to build up some more houses. And then we're going to come in with good old Litematica here, and I've already designed the greenhouse in creative, so we're going to be plopping that in right on the corner of this street here. With the greenhouse done, I actually want to come to the inside here and I want to create kind of a moss farm. Now, I may be changing this later in the video to a bone meal farm. It depends on how efficient this design turns out. I've never tried it before, but we're going to build it on the inside nonetheless to hopefully have a moss and or bone meal farm working in the background while we build the rest of the structures around here. Alright, so the moss farm appears to be working decently well. We appear to be getting an okay amount of bone meal. Again, I may make this bigger later in the video, so we'll see as time goes on. But with that, I want to head back outside to the main road here, and I want to begin putting in just as much detail as I possibly can. Okay guys, so here we go. I have spent a lot of time detailing the street. I have everything from, tables with pots on them, different kinds of flowers, a bunch of hanging banners and clothing, hanging signs as well, and just a bunch of different shops going along the road here, making this area feel very lived in. And this took a while to figure out, but I have to say I'm very happy with the vibe that this is giving off, and I cannot wait for the entire area to feel like this. It's gonna be insane. But now that I have an idea of the particular direction I want this build to go in, it's time to do what is most likely going to be the biggest, most time-consuming portion of this video, which is building up all of the framework for all the other houses in the entertainment district. And so since this is going to be a pretty big portion of the video, I wanted to do the comment of the day segment right here. And so today's comment of the day comes from Jurassic Aiden 13, and he basically says, "Good job on the video. Also, you should make an alchemy place that's abandoned in the Pale Garden. After watching Dan TDM's newest video on his Minecraft world, it looks beautiful, and maybe you could add a maze as if it were like that one forest in Breath of the Wild." So Aiden, thank you for the comment, and the reason I chose your comment is because this is a good way for me to talk about and reveal a bit of my future plans for this hardcore world. And a part of that is the fact that I do plan to have an alchemy type of building as one of my next structures. I don't know if it's going to be the next video or a couple more videos down the road, but it's towards the top of my to-do list. And what I'd actually like to do is have an alchemy or potion building inside of an abandoned observatory. You see, in my world, I know I don't talk about the lore often, but it is pretty extensive, and it's also very layered. Like earlier in this series, I mentioned how you'll be able to kind of see the class system of the villagers play out on the survival island. The richer villagers will be using the more expensive materials in their homes, like calcite and diorite, while the more working class of villagers will be using things like stone and wood. But there's actually more to that. You see, in my world, there were actually multiple civilizations that that lived here before the current villagers did. And they were much more advanced in their stonecraft. So any type of structures, including the starter base that you see that's made out of calcite and diorite and the marble looking blocks, those structures actually came from a prior civilization that somehow got wiped out. And these new villagers have moved in, and they're the ones that are kind of adding on to those already existing structures, building with wood and regular types of stone. Now, the reason why I tell you all of that is because it does directly relate to the potion and alchemy shop that I want to make. I would like to try to create a structure that looks like those more advanced previous villagers had built an observatory out of marble, calcite, and diorite, and after it was abandoned, when the new villagers moved in, they didn't really know what to make of the structure and they didn't know how it worked. So instead of refurbishing it and actually using it as an observatory, they use it as a potion shop. So I have a lot of designing on that build to do behind the scenes because it's going to be very complicated to show multiple layers of custom written history into one build. But yeah, anyways, once again, Aiden, thank you for the comment, and let's get back to the video. And this place is looking amazing. I'm very happy with how this is turning out. We've got all the buildings in place, so now it's time to start detailing the vast majority of them. And we're going to start by coming in with some different kinds of chimneys in a couple of places. And what's great about these chimneys is not only are they going to add to the build and make it look cooler, but the light from some of the campfires that we'll be using on top of the buildings is going to help keep them mob-proof, so we won't have to worry about anything spawning on top of us. But now, with all the chimneys in place, I want to kind of work on this right section down along the water here. Now, even though this area is primarily for entertainment, there needs to be a place for the villagers who work here to live. So this is kind of going to be like a residential street, but we're just going to get started on extending some of these buildings here and adding some more walkways for the villagers to get up to where they live. And we're also going to start laying out some of these pathways here using regular path blocks, coarse dirt, packed mud, and then maybe some gravel or cobblestone every now and again. Okay, so most of the pathways are done, and now I actually want to start decorating the buildings themselves a little bit. And so I'm going to start with just the regular design that we've been doing for a while to create some kind of supports on these overhanging buildings using fence gates. And we're also going to do the same design on the roofs as well. So we're pretty much just going to fill in as many empty spaces with these gates as possible. And then we're going to come in with some doors to create some entrances. And I'm going to turn this little raised patio area here into kind of like a seating area, or maybe like a little deck for whoever lives here. And then I'm going to take that same railing design I used there, utilizing an assortment of trapdoors, and I'm going to create some more railings on the walkways leading up to some of the other buildings. And another thing I like to do is create some more balconies every once in a while, just to give some of these villagers more room to breathe and to add some detail to these buildings. And I'm just going to do that using some slabs and stairs for the floor, and then again that same trapdoor railing idea. And these buildings are also going to need some windows, and I've really been liking this kind of bay window, I guess, design that I've been using in the village. So I'm going to place some more of these in. And I think while I do this, I might fire up another live stream and complete some of this with you guys. And speaking of which, now would be a good time to tell you to subscribe if you haven't already and if you're enjoying the video. And also definitely make sure you have your bell notifications on, because these previously mentioned live streams are a really good way to see everything that I do off camera. I know a lot of times in my videos, it can feel like I kind of just appear with resources, but if you come to my live streams, you get to watch me do a lot of that resource gathering live, and you get to see a bunch of behind the scenes stuff, so it's pretty cool. But here we are. I absolutely love the way this turned out. I think we did a really good job of detailing it to a point where it feels lived in, but not detailing it too much to a point where it feels chaotic and cluttered. I think I nailed the vibe that I wanted to go for. I'm really enjoying this place. We have a bunch of balconies and a bunch of clotheslines hanging using banners and fences. We've got lanterns and plants everywhere. We also have a little tree that we built to help fill in some space as well and to add some more greenery. I can't wait for the entire island to look like this. This is just a little taste of what we're going for, but I'm in love with it so far. Now I want to kind of come to this little edge area over here. There's a bit of empty space. I'd like to bone meal it a little bit, get some green moss going to add some shrubbery, and I think we're going to build a few more custom trees here just to give us a nice little lookout point for the villagers to have, a nice view while they're walking through their city. Now, moving back more towards the center of the village, I want to start filling out the rest of the pathways. It feels a little weird that only one section of the pathways are done, and I think it'll help move this process along if we can visualize what this area is going to look like when the actual roads are installed. So we're going to start building those in the middle of the town square and then moving outwards from there. And I'm going to be using an assortment of different blocks. For the main road, I want it to be made of a little bit higher quality looking materials. And so for the main road and the town square, I'm going to use a combination of coarse dirt, bricks, and granite to create a bit of a reddish hue to the road. And again, to make it look like the main road is made of a bit of higher quality material. And then as we branch out from the main road, we'll go back to what we were using previously, that being the coarse dirt, path blocks, and packed mud. There we go. This whole area is completely filled out, except for there's a little patch of grass that's underneath all the chests we're using that I haven't done yet. But we don't need to worry about that right now. I actually want to start working on this corner building here. I really like the look of it, and I think I want to turn this into some kind of reading area or library. Reading during medieval times was one of the only forms of entertainment, so I think having a really big reading nook that's almost a side centerpiece to this area would make sense. So we'll start by just putting in some more of those windows. I want this entire kind of like outcrop circular shape to be a giant window. I think that would be pretty cool. And then we're going to fly off to where our end portal is, and I'm going to use a pickaxe to mine down these bookshelves. This is one of the least satisfying things I have ever done, but I really do not feel like installing Silk Touch on an axe right now, so we're going to rock with what we got, and we're going to take these home and start building the library. And we'll just create kind of like a semicircle on the inside so you can see all of the books from the street. Then I'm also going to create a second layer here, and I'm going to install some dark oak wood floors. And I'm also going to create the look of some shelves using some slabs. This will also give us the opportunity to place maybe a couple of pots with plants on them every now and again. And then I'm just going to kind of create a little bit of a side entrance here, and I'm also going to install another small balcony on the top of the build here. That way there's a bit of an outdoor reading area as well. We're going to create a second balcony over to the right of the build too. That way there's more than one. And then right below it, we're going to have this kind of like outdoor smaller bookshop. So for people who maybe are in a bit of a rush and don't want to go inside, there can be an outdoor section with all of the best-selling books that people can buy just right off the street. But there we go. I think that's a really good start, and I think it looks cute. We're going to detail the rest of the interior on stream in the future, but for now, this will definitely do. So next, directly across from the library in the same kind of road section, we have another house that I'm actually going to tear down. I do want this to be kind of a small bamboo shop and bamboo farm. This isn't going to be our main source of bamboo. Rather, I'd like for this to actually be a place where we store all of our scaffolding. I think it makes sense because, you craft scaffolding using bamboo. So yeah, little bamboo shop. But instead of a regular house, I want to do something a little more exotic. And I'm actually going to start by marking out the outline for another secondary kind of smaller greenhouse. Again, I really want to put an emphasis on all of the plant life and crops and shrubbery that these villagers grow. I want these villagers to really have a deep love and connection to plant life and their environment in general, so I think having a bunch of greenhouses everywhere would really get that message across. But for the main pillars and structure of this build, I'm going to use some stripped dark oak logs, and then I'm going to use a combination of regular blue and light blue stained glass to create a bit of a stained glass window. Our main greenhouse is going to have green stained glass windows in a little bit. I think I might actually take down the original design for the greenhouse. I want the new one to be a little bit bigger, but anyways, since we're going to be using green glass over there, I figured using blue over here would look pretty cool. And having the blue glass in combination with the green bamboo coming through in the background, I think that's going to look sick. I'm also going to want to install some more interesting looking architecture kind of along the edges of the build to give us a bit more of a unique shape. We can also use some mud walls and some regular fences to create some support pillars. And then we're just going to come onto the inside here and start bone mealing some moss. We're going to use some string to prevent bamboo from growing too tall. Then on the outside here, we'll create another little circular entrance. And I think we're going to have a little bit of a shelf/storage situation in the back along the back wall. So we're going to put some shelves in and use some barrels and chests for our storage. Could also throw some different pots down, and then we're going to hang some lanterns and some plants from the ceiling as well. But there we go. This bamboo greenhouse is done, and I think it looks absolutely gorgeous, especially with shaders. I threw a spore blossom down as well. That way we get that cool kind of grassy particle thing going on, and it is 100% helping us to bring this place to life. I also added a bunch of decorations on the outside to make it look like whoever owns the bamboo shop is selling everything they're growing on the inside on the outside of the place, and I think that helps out a lot as well. Now that we have this greenhouse done, I'm really in the mood to continue like the foliage trend here, so we're going to tear down the old greenhouse structure that I had. I don't like the look of it, and I know I can do much better, so we're just going to completely erase it and start brand new. And for this next one, I'm going to be using a combination of green, lime green, and yellow stained glass to make up the majority of the build, and then all of the support pillars and everything are going to be made out of tuff. And I'm also probably going to throw in some dark oak wood decorations as well. That way we stay consistent with this dark and kind of greenish tone using the dark oak wood and the tuff to match the glass. Dude, let me just tell you, this thing looks awesome. Especially on the inside with complementary shaders. Look at the way the green light from the sun is shining through. I absolutely cannot wait to fill this thing with plants. It's going to look absolutely gorgeous. Dude, there's a high likelihood that I'm like possibly the best person who has ever played this game. And that's being modest. No, obviously, I'm just kidding, but I'm absolutely in love with this thing. But before we can start building on the inside, I have to fix up some of the path work on the outside. And then I want to redo this little shop over to the left of the greenhouse here. Well, there we go. I think that looks good. Now I just also want to come in and kind of expand the kind of tent that we have here to give this outdoor shop some more coverage from the weather and elements and things. Speaking of weather, it immediately starts raining as soon as we put that up. Immersion. All right, it's time to head inside. One of the first things I want to do is actually build the bigger bone meal farm that I was talking about earlier. The small one that we had was nice, but it actually wasn't renewable. The more we let it run, we were actually losing bone meal, so it was a net negative design. But anyways, this design that we're using is actually the same bone meal farm design that I used in my regular survival series. And if you guys don't know, my regular survival series is actually my most favorite Minecraft world that I've ever had. So I would definitely recommend checking out that series. I'm going to be posting more on it in the near future, so keep that in mind. So there we go. The bone meal farm is done and it fits perfectly snug inside the building here. I'm kind of annoyed that we're not going to be able to hide it as well as I would like to, but I think this will do for now. We can always come back and change it later. But for the moment, I just want to take a minute to sit here and let this thing go for a while so we can collect some bone meal and use that to create that lush environment throughout the rest of the build. And we're going to start by marking out some pathways within the structure here. I want these paths to be made of tuff to match the rest of the building. And then we're just going to start creating some shelving and storage units throughout the build. Because, you know, not only is this going to be our bone meal farm, but this is where I want to store all of our moss and leaf blocks. We won't ever really have a ton of them all at once, I don't think, so just having a little bit of decoration storage is an okay idea for me. I also want to design a couple of little decorative benches around the place. That way our botanical villagers have, you know, some areas to practice their botany. Is that the right word? Who do plant gardeners? Why is that something that eluded my brain? These are gardeners. But yeah, I just want to have a couple of benches for our gardener villagers to have fun preparing and selling their plants. And then after that's done, we're just going to come in and fill in all the different types of foliage to get this place looking beautiful. Now, before I show off the inside of what I just did in the build, I want to come to the back of the build, and I want to have something that isn't at all functional, but I think is going to be really cool. Now, a lot of you know I am an absolutely massive fan of Game of Thrones. And like I said earlier in the video, I really want to put an emphasis on these villagers' connection to nature. So I'm actually going to build a custom forest area in the back here and my own variation of a weirwood tree. Now, these weirwood trees in Game of Thrones do have magical properties, but I don't want to include that in my lore of the actual world. Instead, I just want this to be a cool looking build as an homage to a series I love. And guys, before we go inside, I built this kind of outdoor shop area, and I think it looks really cute and pretty, but before we go in, I have to say, this is one of my most favorite things that I've ever made. I really was not expecting this to turn out this well, but just look at how gorgeous this greenhouse turned out. Oh my god. I feel like I managed to make this so cozy and just, this is exactly the vibe I wanted when you walk in here. And the shaders with that green and yellow light coming through is definitely helping, but just, it's so cozy and so welcoming, and I just absolutely love the way it turned out. I've got everything from different kinds of pots to moss hanging off the side of barrels to different leaf blocks to represent bushes, a bunch of different flowers. I even have some mushrooms in flower pots, and I have more spore blossoms spread throughout the area. I've got glowberries hanging from the ceiling. I've got a couple of ladders dotted around the place so that the villagers can actually access the hanging plants and things. And I did spend a lot of time trying to cover up the bone meal farm as best as possible. I can't cover it completely because the lava that's in the bone meal farm will actually catch this place on fire if there were any blocks that are too close to it. So I did the best I could, and it doesn't look perfect, but I think it's hidden well enough to get the message across. And on the outside here, I also added in some more sections of plants and a little tree that you can walk under. And I love just the view of walking past that tree and bam, getting hit with the view of the starter base. Hold on, wait, let's do that again, because like you're just walking under here, can't see anything. Dude, it's gorgeous. I'm so good at this game, man. But yeah, you just keep walking back here through these trees. You get this nice, quaint view of the inside of the greenhouse. And then as you're coming down this wooded road, you're met with the view of the red and white weirwood tree. And I absolutely love the way this looks. I honestly love this place so much. I'm thinking about maybe starting all of my streams in this area or something. It's just the perfect place to relax and wind down when we're not building anything. I might add a couple of benches every now and again. Yeah, this is my favorite part of this world so far. But now with that done, it is time to move on to working on the town square. And I'm going to begin by shearing some of the sheep that I have dyed different colors. And then we're going to be taking that wool and building a couple of shops along the road here. And I actually want these to be kind of clothing shops. We're going to have armor stands with different dyed leather everywhere, but this is actually going to be the storage area for our wool and dye blocks temporarily. But there we go. This place is done and I think it looks pretty good. I'm going to be honest, it's not my favorite. I feel like there's something missing and I don't really know what that is, but I think as the video goes on and we fill the area in with more details, this, again, similar to the first shops that we made, will start to make more sense. Now we're going to come over to this little building to the left here. We're going to add in some more bay windows, and we're going to add a little amethyst shop down at the bottom here. And the reason why I want this to be an amethyst shop is because I actually want there to be a giant amethyst geode in the town square. But with that pretty much done, I want to move over to this structure here. I'm going to remove the roof. I don't like the way it looks, and I have a bit of a different design idea in mind. Like I said earlier in this video, kind of talking about the lore of this world, I want to make it look like there are a bunch of these old structures that have been broken down and are being repurposed by these new villagers. So I think if this were actually some kind of torn down part of a castle that maybe used to be here, I think that would look pretty cool. So we're going to remove the roof, like I said. Then we're actually going to take out the center section of the wall here, and we're going to rebuild it up to make it look like a bit of some kind of bridge. And then we'll extend the pillars here, kind of making it look like they've been broken down as we go along. And then we can finish up detailing the bridge as well. And I'm also going to do my best here to make it look like this crumbled part of the castle has exposed a couple of different layers here on the inside. So we're just going to come in real quick and do some decorating, maybe add a light source or two to make this more visible and stand out at nighttime. And then I'm just going to put a roof on the other section of this little castle bit too. And yeah, zooming out a bit in free cam mode, that looks a lot better. I like that a lot. And it really helps to complement the firework farm. Now, I also want to have kind of a little bit of I guess a restaurant or a pub off to the right of the kind of shopping area or the clothing area. So we're going to build a little outdoor seating area. Then we'll add in some more windows and a little entrance as well. And then to kind of fill in space on the other side of the street there, I'm going to add in some more clothing racks. And so that way when people are walking down this road, they can eat and then go right to shopping. And then I'm just going to decorate this other building here to, again, help us to fill in some space. And one of the last things I want to do here is actually build the town center. Now, again, this centerpiece is going to be a giant exposed amethyst crystal. And the reason why I'm doing this is, if you remember in last episode, I talked about how this entire island is basically a giant amethyst meteorite that crashed into the ocean. And perhaps that also ties into some of the lore I was talking about earlier about the earlier civilizations being wiped out. But anyways, I think having like this amethyst cluster as like a piece of history sticking out from the ground and being honored by the villagers of the town would make a lot of sense. And to be completely honest with you, I think it would just look cool. And then after we're done with that, we're just going to fill in the rest of the houses with more decorations along the streets here to start putting on the finishing touches of the build. with all these streets filled in and the town square done, there is not a lot left for us to do, guys. This project is finally coming to a close. So before we put the finishing touches on, I want to say thank you so much for the support that you've given me over the years. Hitting 100,000 subscribers really is a dream come true for me, and I'll have a much more extensive video talking about that coming out later. But I want to say thank you for everything that you've done for me, and I really hope you've enjoyed this extensive episode. But with that, let's get to the final details of decorating this build, and we can call it a day. So with that, guys, this is the entertainment district complete. I have added a bunch of new things since you last saw me to really help bring this place together. I've added everything from different colored hanging signs and banners to lanterns and soul lanterns, and I really just crammed in as much decoration as possible. And not to mention, I linked up an entire firework network under the ground here, so that way we can have these epic firework displays all throughout the city. And I just have to say, I think this build definitely did come out a little quirky and stupid, but I think it still looks absolutely gorgeous, and it really fits the theme and the style of buildings that I'm going for in this world. But thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. I had a ton of fun building this, and I hope you had fun watching. But once again, thank you all for everything. Slowly, day by day, you all really are changing my life, and there's nothing I could ever do to thank you for that. All I can do is hope that the content I give you is enough to satisfy in return. But just one more time, thank you for 100,000 subscribers. I hope you have enjoyed this video, but I gotta get going because I've got more work to do.